and welcome, listeners, to the latest episode of Lost Lieutenant. I'm your host, Nick, and this evening I'm joined by a fellow host.
Kevin.
How are you, Kevin?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm all right. It's a pleasure to be the fellow host on the show for a change. It's quite nice, actually.
That's right. Yeah, we did aim to get started about half an hour ago, but had some technical difficulties, which means instead of Kev doing the recording, it is me doing the recording. So it's not the end of the world. We got there in the end, but
Here now.
yeah. So tonight we are going to be discussing mainly after we have a bit of a catch up. We're going to be discussing the 5 mission lineup for the upcoming 2-day Infinity tournament, Novacore, which is going to be held in Maitland in New South Wales, hosted by our compatriot Gavin Bateman. So we're very much looking forward to that event. But before we jump into that, we can have a bit of a catch up. How have you been, Kev?
Mate, I have been pretty busy. My Infinity outside of the games on the weekend that we'll discuss has been pretty minimal. A lot going on right now with selling my house, planning overseas adventure for 3 months. That's finally getting to the last few flights and accommodation bookings, and I'm off to WA for 2 weeks as of tomorrow to work in some mine sites. So it's a bit there's a fair bit going on,
Lots
but
going on.
I'm glad to be able to sit down with you tonight and discuss the upcoming event of Novacore because I'm very much looking forward to that. It's gonna be a good union with a lot of the Infinity Australia family. Yeah, I've got something to look forward to before I finally get on a plane and get the fuck out of this country for a few months.
That's it. I mean, it's crazy that the last time we were able to have Novacore was 2019, and there was like 100 people, maybe 120. I can't
Yeah,
remember. It
yeah.
was, I believe, it was the largest Infinity event in the world on to date at the time.
At the time, yeah. I'm not
Um,
sure if it's been beaten.
I
I know
doubt
somebody
it.
that was
Over the past couple of
somebody.
years, I can't see who would have.
No, yeah, yeah, definitely not over the past couple of years. I think they had Salt Lake Showdown. I think that was like 80, or maybe it was 60. They've hit somewhere close to that since lockdown ended. But yeah, this will be definitely the biggest one in Australia, and
Yeah, and we've
definitely.
so we've got 80 people signed up and ready to go, and there's definitely a waiting list as well. So it will definitely be capped one way or the other
Yeah,
in terms of
absolutely.
attendees, which is very exciing.
What about you, Nick? You've been busy
Mate, I've
on
been
the
up to all
podcast.
sorts of stuff. So like, I've well, this is the second episode that will be airing on YouTube as well as our regular podcast locations. But because I just sort of just jumped onto the YouTube train, I did a collaboration last week with Rob Cantrell,
Collab.
who's yeah, that's right, who goes by Robert Shepherd on YouTube. You should definitely follow his YouTube channel. He does lots of battle reports, and when we have our challenges each month, he generally does a video response to as a submission for that as well, which is amazing. But there was a post on the Infinity global community Facebook page, someone looking for a faction tier list, and Rob jumped on and sort of maybe berated him. Maybe berated is too strong of a term, but kind of put him in his place a little bit to say that faction tier lists don't necessarily belong in Infinity because the game doesn't really work like that, as we all know. So then on that same thread, I kind of threw the gauntlet down and said, "All right, Rob, well, why don't we just do it anyway?" So the following night, Rob and I sat down for 2 hours and ranked every single Infinity faction uh, against each other in between from S tier to A, B, C, and D tier. So all 42 of them, and that was really good fun. And there's been an amazing response. I think it's gotten over 1,500 views on YouTube already.
Oh,
We posted the audio as a special episode as well, not a full episode, just like a special cut. Because it was Rob doing all the work on his end, and I just tacked along. When you listen to the video or the audio as well, you will notice that it is Rob doing all of the work on his end because of the 2 hours. I reckon I maybe have 15 minutes worth of talk time because
Yeah, he did say his jaw was sore at the end of it, and it's no surprise that that episode garnered so much attention. I mean, if you put up a controversial video like, Infinity Faction, the definitive tier list, someone's just gonna go, "Ah, French should be A tier." Like, that'll always happen. People, and you generate discussion. But I think for the most part, I haven't checked the comments on YouTube, but on Facebook it's been pretty, and on our LoL Discord it's been pretty civil. Most people tend to kind of agree, but that's also because no real faction has been trashed, right? Every faction is kind of at least good.
yeah, and we sort of in the discussion we do. Rob at the start of the video, Rob lays out how we're ranking and like what criteria we're looking at when we make a decision on where the factions sit. But yeah, in terms of the comments and things like that, because you can expect to be kind of flamed for this type of thing. And overall, the main response has sort of been that I was sort of people were dreading to see what the result was of this type of list, but we did it right. So it's been overwhelmingly positive, which is great, and so you should definitely go check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think just my personal comment on it, like I think, yeah, the specific order in each tier is, can be massaged and moved around, but I think the general what is in S, what's in A, what's in B, what's in C, and what's in D is pretty accurate. You could argue that Starmada should be high B, and you could argue that Assassin should be, higher in the A's, but the fact is they're in a tier, and that's probably the general overview. Individual metas and people and whatnot may vary.
Yeah, definitely. But
So it's good.
yeah, so that's one thing that I've been up to. Also, been getting loads of games in as well, which is great. I've been
You.
managed to. I won't be playing a game Wednesday night this week because it is my third wedding anniversary. So,
Oh, congratulations to
thank
you
you.
and you and Kirsty.
That's all right. I didn't. I actually did. She did give me the green light to go and play, but I've also come down with a head cold. So if I sound a bit stuffy, then that's what's going on there. So two reasons why I'm not going out on Wednesday night, because I've got a cold and because it's my wedding anniversary. So, but
Yeah,
I've been
yeah,
getting loads of games in. All of them have been orientated around Novacore prep, because that's the big thing coming up. And even on the weekend, we had a 3 round tournament as well at House of War. So did you want to have a quick chat about that
yeah.
first?
So a quick chat about that, because that might be the reason. Well, I thought initially before you said you had a head cold, that might be the reason why you're so wiped out, because that was a tough
Oh, well,
day.
look, I did I'd started to get a little bit of a cough during the day at the event, and the obvious jokes were made about that. Um, but I don't have the Wuhan spicy lung.
Spicy cough.
It's just a regular head cold. But I'm sure like the amount of stress that I put my body on under at the event did not help my immune system. So
Yeah, let's just say from the top. Um, Missions for Novacore are fucked. And thank you very much, Gavin, for putting us under all of that. Because yeah, the Sunday. Well, it didn't also help that we also had the Australian election on Saturday night, so there was a few people that might have been a little bit dusty from staying up till after midnight waiting for the results to come in. Be that that said, it was a tough 3 missions that we took. But I had a good I had a good day. I didn't have a great day as far as like my results, but I had a fun
yeah,
time.
I mean, and it's all whenever you can get three games of Infinity in a single day, it's always a great time. But I'm the same. I have not performed that poorly in an organized event in since I can remember. I
Yeah,
can not remember performing that badly
the
since like the
Sunday was definitely the day for the newbies. We had a new player come out on top on the day. I think we had a couple of your players come really quite highly. Like Julian got third, I got sixth, and you got 17th, I think it was. So
17, lucky
yeah,
17.
out of 20, and a lot of the other, like even Val. I think Val might have been fourth or fifth or something like that. So yeah, like fair play to the new players. Like they took that because it was comm center, countermeasures, and rescue, and those those are three tough missions for new players, for any player to devise a list for.
Yeah, and of
So
the 5 missions that we'll be playing at Novacore, those are the 3 trickiest ones. And that's
mhm.
why Pete picked them for that event, was so that we could all have a go of playing what are the 3 trickiest missions. What we probably didn't necessarily prepare for was how much of a strain that would be to play 3 really tricky missions, one after the other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you want to talk quickly about how you went and how you kind of I mean we'll obviously get into the missions when we get into the main segment of the show, but just on that day, do you have any highlights?
um,
Lowlights?
oh yeah, there's plenty of lowlights. I mean, I had a loss the first round and then 2 draws. Um, and oh, hello, Corinna. How are you?
Yeah. Sorry, my partner's just come in with some custard tarts for
Oh,
for
amazing.
dessert, and then she's just left before even saying hello, bye. Okay, she's gone.
Um, yeah, I played Luke Henry first up, and I play Luke quite regularly because he lives not far from me, so we do get a game in every now and then. And he managed to like inch out the win, and we went to lunch afterwards, and we actually had a chat about it, and I could have actually if yeah. So basically, what happened was my final turn in playing Com Center, my final turn, I pushed like one button and he'd pushed three, and
Mm.
I needed to get 3 buttons to have more buttons pushed than him. And so I ran an engineer with all my orders: move, move, push a button, fail the roll. Move, move to the next
Mm.
one, push the button, fail the roll. Move, move to the
Yeah.
next one, push the button, fail the roll. I kept moving because my one of my classifieds was sabotage. So I had to put decharges on a building in his half of the table, which is why I moved all the way to the other side of the table with the engineer.
Right.
So what we did was, which we didn't realize, the rule has changed since N3, but I mean, first round we were already wiped out, was that I'd spent one order to place the decharge, and then I spent a second order
Ah.
to detonate it. But actually, you don't have to spend the order to detonate it. It just automatically detonates in the resolution, which neither of us realized. So if I'd had one more order, I might have been able to push another button, which would have brought us to the same amount of buttons pushed, and then it would have worked out a little bit differently. But you live and learn. That's why we're playing these games, so we can get all the rules straightened out, and we don't have to think about them on the day.
Yeah, there's a lot fair bit of fair bit of that mental load on those missions, just from not just like the win conditions, but also classifieds and everything, right?
Yeah, that's it. Second up, I played Josh, who was playing JSA in Countermeasures on your table, Kev, the one with that you had the walls set up on.
Oh, yeah, my little experimental table.
Yeah, and it was tricky in that, um, like, we ended up having a draw because we both got 3 classifieds each. But I felt like I was really dominating the whole time, but then it all just sort of, I don't know how, it just all just slipped away. So it's this,
Did he come up from behind and got like a couple of classifieds at the
yeah,
end,
that's
or how
that's
did it?
that's right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I got one classified turn one classified turn two, one classified turn three, whereas he came in and got like one classified in turn two, and then 2 classifieds in his final turn as well. So it was really on a knife's edge, and could have gone either way. If he'd failed one of the rolls, there wouldn't have been orders there for him to roll another whip check, for example. But it was a really tight game, and we were both pretty stressed. And we did have a chat afterwards, saying that next time we have a game, we just have to have a bit more of a chill game. Would be nice because
Yeah. Was there anything about that table? Actually, you're not. Are you able to mark that table up on the stream? I think it's in the Patreon chat. I don't know if
maybe.
I'm asking a lot from you. I
No,
know,
that's
but
okay. I
just
think
so our
I
viewers can
can.
see the table and see. I mean, I might be able to give you some I don't know, a brief of what I was trying to do with the table. It didn't quite work out.
Okay, if I bring it up like that, the it should be able to be captured. Okay, sure. So I've got it up on my screen here. Basically,
Cool.
we've got I deployed on this side that's closest to where my mouse is right now. Josh deployed on the other side. These wall sections are actually quite high, and because some of them are
Mm.
so close together, then if you've got someone up on one of these ledges or walkways that are attached to the walls, I deployed up on there thinking I'd be able to then see down into the sections below and beyond. But
Yeah.
because the walls are
Yeah.
so high, you can really don't. You've really got quite a limited line of line of fire because it's almost like you're operating on two separate levels. If anything comes up onto the other walkways on the other walls, then you can see them. But if you stay below the level of the walls, then you're pretty much okay. I've heard you talking, Kev, that you intended it like a lot of these walls have like little windows through them, and your intention was to just play those as true line of fire. We had not done that, and I guess we didn't really think about it. There was no notes on the table given to us prior about like what the intention of that would have been. I'm sure that would have made it a very different game. And even from the get go, from deployment, if we'd probably studied it a bit more as well and actually gotten down to the proper levels and checked the line of fire at the start, that would have helped. But again, you
Yeah.
live and learn with these sorts of things.
And that's not something I really noticed either when I was setting up the table. I was, intending that, the little ledges, you could see a fair bit of the board, but I guess it does kind of cut off a lot of it because they're all the same height. Um, but yeah, the idea was those slits in the walls would allow you to sort of see through to the midpoint, and then on the left-hand side one, it would allow you to see sort of into the middle of the table as well. It might create a little bit of a Swiss cheese, but there's not too many windows that go through to other windows, or you can always play. I think what Luke did in round three was, or yeah, he played like kind of murky windows, like you couldn't see through more than one set of windows. If there was a
Okay.
point in which you could line up multiple windows, then you could only see through one set.
Yep.
Just avoid that like haha gotcha moment like from corner to corner. And then the idea of the big tall Brutal Cities buildings was kind of taken from Ryan from Brutal Cities. He built a table that's similar to this. And I just kind of like the aesthetic of having like the forests, and then these buildings kind of in the forest. These not forest, but like in the, I don't know, urban parkland area. And yeah, I think it looks nice. I think it needs a little bit more of working with how to put the walls down that it makes it play in the manner that I wanted it to play.
Yeah, and like this right flank of the deployment zone on this side, it's kind of tough.
Oh yeah, well, in
What
what way?
in that I don't know, maybe it's just the way that I look at things. Like anything that's a hill, I just tend to avoid because I don't like putting my models on things that are slanted. Um,
Sure.
I did have something up there, but like the yeah, I don't know. It just felt like half of this deployment zone was great in this half, but then the other half just kind of had
Yeah. So
nothing
the half
going
of the
for it.
deployment zone that's got your typical, angular buildings is fine. But anything with like kind of weird curvy edges, which I get like that hill is off a funny angle where you can't really put anything behind it because anything coming down the flank might see it. You could probably fit a fire team on there, but um, yeah, I think I could probably move that wall that's kind of in the middle and bring it more towards a DZ to kind of cut off anything from getting a flanking shot on that hill. That would probably clean that one up. Whereas the hill on the other side's got a ruin on it, and that makes it a bit easier to hide stuff behind. But yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that was the first one. The first time I tried making it, I think I need to take it back and play with it a bit more.
yeah. So
Because those walls are from Brutal Cities, and I actually got them from Ryan to test out. So
oh,
I
cool.
figured I'd actually want to throw them on the table and try and get some use out of them. More than just a bug hunt style table, I wanted to try to. Like if you go onto his website or his Facebook, Brutal Cities Facebook, he's made some really good use of those walls. So I was just trying to replicate that with what I had. So anyone out there watching the stream or listening, just check out Ryan or check out Brutal Cities, and yeah, he's got some really cool stuff there for terrain. Oh no, Nick has his sound is gone. Du-du-du.
Okay, so I think we're back. Sorry about that, listeners. We had some minor technical issues, which looks like we fixed up. But yeah, so that was round one and round two. Round three for me was against Dante, who was a pretty new player, and still managed to end up as a draw playing rescue because that's a tough mission. And turns out I actually cheated as well because he got one civilian back to his deployment zone, and then I ran a flash pulse bot up to grab one of my civilians and got him all the way back. And it wasn't until today that I actually read the rules. It says remotes can't pick up civilians. So again, it's a good thing that we're making all these learnings 2 weeks before the actual event, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why we're here tonight, folks, to give you the lowdown on these missions so that you do not make the same mistakes as Nick did.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I made no mistakes this
what
week.
about you, Kev? How did you find the day?
Yeah, it was good. Look, I've been really struggling with list building for this event. I'm gonna be running Shaz Vasti, and I know people will be like, "Oh, Shaz Vasti, so easy for this one. They've got so many new stuff and things." No, it's really hard. I'm really finding it difficult. So I built a list on Saturday night during the election, and just like, "Fuck it, that'll do." Literally got to yeah, like Sunday morning. I was like deploying my models, going, "Wait, is this the right list? I don't even remember which list I submitted." So um, it was a bit chaotic from that point of view. I wasn't quite happy with any of my lists, but we ran them into it anyway. And yeah, round one was against David, a local from the west of Melbourne. We've had quite a few games together in the past, and they usually go like one of two way. You know, either I win or he wins. So it's we've had a good fair bit of back and forth. I think our last game he won. He was playing combined army and we were playing comm center. I got up 10-5 on that one. Very luckily, actually, in the end I was able to. I think I had Sheskin. I killed Sheskin on turn one, but he had a Caliban chain of command, which on turn three I think he brought out to push a couple of buttons, and I was able to get into position and shoot his Caliban with my Sphinx and put him into Lost Lieutenant on the third turn, which prevented him from um, basically pushing any buttons because I think I went first, and I think I ended up having 5 buttons to his 2 or 3. But yeah, really tight game, really good game. That felt good. I generally feel quite good when I run a Sphinx. I know they're they're not I don't know, they're not the best tag because they don't do what tags do, which is like stand back and shoot stuff. Um, and they have limitations, but I find when I run a Sphinx, I just kind of scare like people. I don't know if I scare people, but I think just the shock value of a Sphinx has a lot of value, even in a mission that maybe requires a lot of specialists like Comm Center. But we'll get into that. Round two was against the eventual winner of the event, Stefan, who has been coming to House of War in Ringwood for a few months now and has been learning off of myself and Peter. He also picked up Shaz Vasti, so that was fun. It was a Shaz Vasti off, and it was on the table that you built, Nicholas. So I've got a few things to say about that
So
table.
I'll bring
Um,
up the picture of this table because
Please bring up this table. Now, caveat: this table was built by Nick deliberately to be what would you call
well,
anti-Melbourne meta?
that's right. So if you look at any photos from any events in Melbourne, you see some of the most gorgeous tables you've ever seen. The other thing about the tables is that a lot of them do have quite a bit of terrain on them. So when I decided I wanted to put a table together using mostly the CB, well, actually, it's 100%, except for the vehicles, 100% CB terrain from their operation boxes. Uh, I decided I was going to make a table that does not have too much terrain on it. It has quite a little bit less than what you would call too much terrain. So, and it got fairly
Got
negative
panned.
responses. I would say I've played on this table 3 times before the event, and I have not had any issues with it. I think the biggest problem that I did when setting this one up, which is an issue that some people did face, was that the tower was too close to the deployment zone. Usually, when I deployed it, that tower was almost in the center of the table,
Mm.
which I think is a better spot for it. In saying that, it's a very open table. I need to make some kind of Gotham City reference when I come up with a name because this table is the table that it's not the table that Melbourne deserves. It's the table that Melbourne deserves, but not the one that it needs right
Not the
now.
one that it needs. Might be the one it needs.
It
It's
is
not
the
one
one
that
it
deserves.
needs. It's the table
Mm.
that Melbourne needs, but not the one that it deserves.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the tower aside, the tower was a problem because my opponent deployed a malignant sniper on there, and it just. And the thing is, I had tools to take it out. I had a Caliban sniper, but a Caliban Spitfire, which would have been 4 dice on nines versus the Malignos is 1 dice on a nine. Even better if I got into 16 inches, which you can do on the table because on ground floor it's fine. It's not too bad. There's enough corridors and ways to move around. The problem I had with the table is you cannot use any of those rooftops without just being fucking shot at from every single conceivable angle, which was what I discovered when I tried to actually move up on any of the rooftops. So you had, I'm not sure which picture you're showing on for YouTube, but if you can envisage that I was deployed on the side closest to the bus, and he had a link team, I think, in the middle building, Lignos on the sniper tower. And he moved over to the one of the buildings, one of the larger buildings in his deployment zone. And he, even though he only had, I think it was the defensive turret because it's countermeasures, plus 3 Nox troopers just kind of standing up. I'd already got into the middle of a table with my Calibans and my Shrouded and my Malignos. As soon as I tried to take any of those rooftops, which I wanted to do because I wanted to try and access the Malignos and also be able to use the rooftops to go prone and start doing classifieds. As soon as I stood up, I was taking shots from all the Nox troopers, the defensive turret, and the Malignos, and there's nothing I could have done about it. Um, Now, there's ways I could have mitigated it by staying on the ground level. But that's also the problem with the table is you're effectively just giving up any high ground, which just means that you're forced to stay on the ground, which is fine. Which is like it's you can argue like, oh well, you just don't use the rooftops. But I'm like, well, then that kind of makes the table very flat. You're basically playing on a single dimension,
Yep.
unless you have a really dominant piece that can use those buildings. Now, if you can imagine a tag on top of that, it's an opponent that maybe didn't have that was trying to hide. Tag would also have a field day because it could just get on top of those buildings and just rampage around, seeing everything except anything that was hiding behind the bus. But the problem with the bus is it's a big long thing. So once you get to either side of the bus, you see whatever is behind it, hiding behind it. So you know, like people can say, yeah, they think this table looks fine. It doesn't actually look that open. This is just like how Melbourne needs to learn how to play. I say, well, look closer and just like see that you cannot use any of these rooftops without being seen all the way across the board. Like you can draw a line from one DC to the other, and it's completely unimpeded if you're on any of those rooftops.
Yeah, and I get that, but I'm not changing the table.
Sure, sure. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll just have to play differently. Hoppy in the chat says he thought this table was perfectly okay. He has quite a few lanes, but also ways around it. Can see the issue with the tower, but it gives benefit if you have an infiltrating sniper, which is not always given. Yeah. Well, that's fair enough, and that's like I said. I agree. There are lanes you can go around them. But you're basically just denying anyone use of the rooftops unless they want to just move prone the entire time. Um, so that was that. So I went down 5-2, I think, to that one. It was just very difficult to get classifieds. It's my fault. I made some tactical errors, but there was even just the ability to get to any of the HVTs was also very difficult because they were also all within line of fire of that sniper. Um, and then round 3 was against Sergey, one of the locals. It's Toha, which is good because I haven't played against Toha in quite some time, so it was good to try and figure out that. I ran the Sphinx against that list as well, in part because I thought I'd try it for rescue, even though I didn't think it was the best list. What's really good is the Sphinx is immune to Toha farts, so I was able to utilize the Sphinx aggressively without worrying about being end gamed or erasered. So that was good, and that ended, I think, 2-0. I think I only ended up getting my classified in one civilian. He ended up getting none, but that was a very tight game as well. He played really well and ran some Chaxas deep into my DZ on turn one that I had to use all my taggers to get rid of them.
Now
Then my
I'll just stop you there for a second, Kev. I do have to apologize because I just blew my nose and I muted myself on the Discord, but I didn't mute myself in OBS. So I've just chucked in the middle of your in the recording. You wouldn't have heard it on the live show, but in the recording and on YouTube, you'll get a great big wall of me blowing my nose. So I do apologize for that.
That was like the one you did with, I think, with Rob, or was it the one I was not on before that, where I think you had a big old cough, and I was like,
Oh,
ooh, blew my ears out. So stop being sick.
sorry about that.
Um, yeah.
Sorry,
So
go on.
that was it. That was all really. It was a good. I mean, I had three good games. It was interesting to play on that table that you built, Nick. It was just a lot of head space was taken up by missions between just how they're scored, in things like countermeasures. Actually, to be honest, countermeasures is probably the easiest one to do. I found rescue quite challenging. That push and pull of like, want to be able to get these civilians, but you've got to basically go all the way into your opponent's side and be able to pull them back out again. It's quite challenging, quite a
Yeah.
challenging mission.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we'll go deeper in the missions later on. But before we move into that, we could probably just do a quick recap on the current challenges that we've got in place at the moment through the current quarter and current month. So the May challenge is using fire teams, which we've been running for the previous month as well, just to uh, just get people trying new things out with the new fire team rules changes. Anything that you think you've found something that works really well, or something that you used to use is now terrible, just write up your thoughts and send it through to lostlieutenant@gmail.com, and you'll go in the draw to win a blister of your choice. And
And
then
just want to say we have had several new entries this month, so thanks to everybody. I think maybe a few of us just needed a few more weeks to get our head around the fire team changes because
get a few more
we've been
games in
in.
as well potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, just to let it all settle and us to figure them out. So yeah, thanks to everyone who's entered this month. You've got about a week left before the end of the month.
That's right. So about a week to go. So if you've got any more entries, send them on through. And the other thing is our current Q3 challenge, which is sign up to our Patreon. So it's usually a hobby challenge, but the hobby this month is to send $3 to your favorite podcast, Lost Lieutenant. Join the Chain of Command
Give us
program
money.
on patreon.com/Lost Lieutenant, and all the details are there. It means you also get exclusive features like our exclusive secret Discord channel with all our patrons in it, and you can also listen into the live shows as well. So we've got a few people in the audience at the moment, which are our lovely supporters, and we do appreciate them. And we also sort of hit them up for feedback and Q&A and that sort of stuff as well. So if you appreciate our podcast, then jump on.
Yeah, I'll always like to hear more from our listeners and give them get them to give us some honest feedback as well, which is valuable.
Cool. Did you want to run through this event announcement you've got here, Kev?
Aye, yeah. So we were reminded about this on Sunday that Val and the guys over at Geelong Infinity Crew are running an event this Sunday at Throw the Dice in Geelong. It's their monthly event. It's Sunday, the 29th of May, $20 entry, and it is Panic Room, Decapitation, and Supremacy. And the event is called Codename Moonraker. And it's a kind of a moving on from their new player monthlies that they've been doing. So before this, they've been running with no ITS extras and no loss of lieutenant. And then they've added in slowly the ITS extras, and now this is the first one they're running that contains loss of lieutenant. That's us. But I don't know if we'll be there or not. I know I won't be, unfortunately. But the last event that he ran was the first one that they ran with a bracketing system. So rather than like the Swiss system, where you get paired up on your scores, what they are doing here is for the first two rounds, they will just match new players with new players and veterans with veterans. And what that does is it just kind of stops a new player from just getting stomped, and also a veteran who's maybe coming down to test out a list isn't just facing a new player and has to take their foot off the gas. And then in round three, they kind of just take the best from each bracket and they face them off against each other. So even if you are a new player and you do well on the day, you will still get to face a veteran. You can kind of test your metal and you're not just playing in the kiddie pool. And then likewise with veterans, they're not just playing like people they play weekly anyway. They're going to into Geelong and getting potentially to play somebody they've never played before. So that's really good. Just did want to mention something that Val and Chris have put up here. So he said, continuing on from the success of the last event, Val and Chris will be using the bracketing system again to keep pairings fair and give both new and veteran players a good game. So what he said here is we would like to introduce a system in which your opponents can provide you. So this is kind of interesting as well. In previous events, they have been doing a feedback form, like a Google sheet, which will allow you to put in what you thought of the event, what you think could be improved, and any other feedback that they could get so they can build a strong community. So I like this idea that they've got here, which is your opponents can provide you some constructive feedback anonymously after the event about the way you play and room you might have to improve. This will be done in a similar way to the previous feedback form, where you will be able to tick a selection of pre-filled boxes highlighting common hobby faux pas. The intention behind this move is to help each other improve on the way we play the game and give you all a chance to shape your community. We want to be very clear. This is not in response to any systematic problems or individuals, and that they are honestly blessed with good players. However, to think our shit doesn't smell and we are perfect would be naive. Furthermore, this is a way of doing feedback diffuses our authorities within the community, yada yada yada. So basically, they're just saying, sometimes when you're playing a new player and they've maybe lost a game, you want to give them feedback there and then on the spot. But sometimes, maybe the person's a little bit sore from losing. They don't want to hear what they could have done better. Maybe being able to type it out later on and send it to them anonymously might make that criticism or that feedback taken more less to heart and
That's
more to
really
head.
interesting. I'm interested to see how it goes. Personally, I don't know. I don't know. It's not something that's ever really come up before. Because like the our community's always been pretty solid, and everyone's like pretty comfortable with each other. And if someone's doing something wrong, you'll kind of get called out on it. But to be able to have this vehicle for newer players to be able to do that same sort of thing anonymously when they might not feel comfortable doing it publicly, I think it's great.
Yeah, and it's like it's good for even you and I as well. Maybe it doesn't have to be new players. It can be veterans. Like, and I know on the weekend, I felt a little bit pushed for time in one of the rounds, and I don't want to I don't want to take that out on any players I'm playing. I want to obviously make sure that everyone's having good time and they're not feeling additional pressure because maybe I'm feeling pressure. But if someone were to have said to me after the event, or or in a feedback form and say, hey Kev, maybe just push me so hard next time for making decisions, I'd be like, oh fuck, I'm doing that, right? Well, thank you for letting me know, because maybe they don't want to say it immediately after. And so this sort of stuff is good. It doesn't always have to be bad stuff. It can be like, hey, you played really well. Maybe consider taking this profile instead of this. It can be anything really. It's just a way to help people improve their game without being I don't know, confrontational.
Sure.
I think it's great,
Great.
good, and you're using all the tools that we have at hand to make our community better.
Yeah, and so that event's coming up on this coming Sunday, the 29th of May, down in Geelong. So I haven't made it to one of the Geelong events yet, but hopefully one day. So
Great. It's really good. It's really a great store. Like it's a little bit on the small side, but you can get like still get like 6 or so tables there. And Richards is a fantastic store owner and really excited and enthusiastic about Infinity.
throw the dice, yeah.
Roll the dice. Yeah.
Cool. So we'll just touch on a few little bits of news
News.
before we jump into our main section there. So we've got a little. I mean, we're getting these every 2 weeks. We get a Warcrow teaser video with a little bit of thank you. With a little bit of info. So we've seen some images of the what are they called? The
They're called the marked, or this I can't actually remember. Oh fuck, I forgot about that name down.
no
Do we have
the
that picture up
the
there?
scions of something.
It's on the Warcrow
It's a
thing somewhere. They are called. Someone help us out. Yeah, the Valdeboth. Valdeboth marked.
Valdebor. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah. So
Deer
okay,
people.
cool. Interesting. It's a bit different. I think it's
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
compared to the pictures we've gotten of the dwarf character. It's all smooth lines and curves and angles and that sort of thing. This is all flesh stuff.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Um, and so to have those two models side by side in the same game is quite interesting because I feel like when you look at the Infinity range, there's everything kind of really fits together in that there's not a huge amount of variety at all. You can put two models from completely different factions next to each other and understand that these two things live and exist in the same world. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the extremes. You've got Toha, and you've got, or even you've got like bears, and then you've got combined army. But I think even if you were to look at the artwork, you can sort of see, oh yeah, there's a I don't know, a direction here.
yep,
These look like one looks like it's from Dark Souls, and the other one looks like it's from that game what everyone plays online.
Minecraft,
Or Minecraft, yeah, it could be. So I think they're quite different. Not that I think that's a bad thing. I just think it was kind of interesting.
League of
They did
Legends. Is
that.
that what you meant?
League of Legends, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not committing to the game. I mean, we don't get any more, nothing really happens until November when the Kickstarter launches. So, it's still a long way out. So we've got another 6 months before anyone's going to have to be reaching for their wallets. So I'm just sort of waiting it out personally.
Yeah. I like the latest video where they go into a bit more detail about how they use the actions in the game. Maybe this is actually kind of related to Defiance, but I haven't never played it. But I kind of like the where they're going, where you generate so much energy, like kind of how you do in Aristea. So you see you get 4 energy. You can use that to move, and you can use that to do actions with. And then you basically however much energy you put into an action, gets you additional triggers and bonuses,
Sure.
which I quite like because it's not just like hey you're doing an attack, but it's like hey you're doing an attack that's like extra additional charge, if you want it to do a certain thing.
Yeah, the thing is, like, all that information is about the Warcrow
Dungeon crawl.
Adventures, right? Which is dungeon crawler, and Defiance is a dungeon crawler. So it makes sense that those two games are going to play very similarly because they can effectively be the same game except one's sci-fi, one's fantasy. Um, what I'm more interested in, which we're not going to get information on for probably another year, is
Mm.
the actual skirmish war game and what that looks like. So
Yeah, yeah, I think that's what we're all holding out for. And how much information you can take from one game and port it over to the other, I don't know, but um, yeah, I like what I've seen so far.
yeah.
That's all I can say.
And then Infinity, we've got some minis on Last Chance, indicating updated sculpts for Aleph and Hak Islam, which makes sense because we know that Aleph and Hak Islam are the next two-player starter pack
Yeah,
coming
the
out later
sky
this
is
year.
always falling when this happens. Someone's like, "Oh my God, they're the
Steel Phalanx has been
was
discontinued.
yeah." You're like, "Did you know they're getting an update? Did you know this is happening? No, okay." But then there would be stuff that's not related to Aleph or Hackislam that are getting they're on Last Chance as well. I think there's some Ariadna stuff. There's actually some interesting stuff on NE2 that's on Last Chance, which is interesting. Um, it's just a shame that some people immediately jump to, oh my god, it's been discontinued, and you're like, well, or it's being reboxed, and let's just assume that the latter is probably more likely.
Yeah, because they have been
Uh,
doing quite a lot of that lately with their like the alpha and beta packs that come out for Code
yeah,
One,
mhm, for
where they
Code One.
where they repack a whole bunch of stuff, and a reduction of SKUs has been something that they've been trying to work through for the past 3 years. So
With the NE2 stuff though, that's kind of interesting because there's no NE2 in Code One. So what are they doing? And like the speculation has been, well, maybe the NE2 mercenaries. So like it's like Senior Massacre, Valera, Sforza, a few others I can't remember now. Me, that sounds like maybe they're just going to be put into some kind of box set, like an NE2 box set or a Mercenaries box set or something like that, where
yeah,
you can buy all those like named characters as one box. Which some people might cry and go, "Oh no, I want the single SKU," but then it goes back to the thing of they're trying to reduce SKUs, so you might just have to buy four to get the one you want. it's just the way that things are going.
Yeah. And then the other point we've got here is that the old bull track or the new bull track has is actually been clarified that it is not size 6, is it is in fact size 7. Uh,
Blew my mind. I think Robert Cantrell was the first to draw our attention to that. Because I just assumed it was always S7. Then when you
I
went
had
onto
I had it
Army,
I had as well. Yeah.
yeah, but if you went onto Army about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was actually S6 on the profile, which was like, oh wow, really? That would be cool if it was S6. But then it's gone, oh no, sorry, it was always S7. Uh, because if it was S6, it would have been kind of cool because it would have
That
differentiated it
makes
from the
it
Raichu.
exactly that makes it more unique, and having where I've been using a size 6 tag quite a bit recently,
Mm,
I can definitely say that this size 6 compared to size 7 is a big deal. So
absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, like looking at the model, I think they released um, the metal miniature, the bull track. So it was on someone's Facebook or it was on the Discord, and you can clearly see it's definitely not an S6 model because it's on a 55 millimeter base.
sure.
So that was just a typo, but that's we're not like it's not like we're not used to seeing those errors from CB.
Unfortunately, we do get the odd error
It's
every now and then, but
it's fine.
but
It's fine. I mean, I didn't even
the
notice.
fact that we're in the environment of a living rulebook and army takes precedence over everything means that they can just fix it pretty easily without having to do any sorts of reprints or errata or that type of stuff. So
Yeah,
I'm happier to have the wrong number typed into the computer program to be fixed than to have a million copies of a book needing a reprint.
I agree.
Cool. Well, did you want to take a little break, Kev, before we get into the main section, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, I've got one more custard tart here that needs to be eaten, so I'm going to do that.
All right.
And
Well,
then I don't want to do that on the mic because that'll be like nom 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 nom.
okay. We'll have a quick pause here, and we'll jump straight back in a moment.
Okay. Soon.
Okay, welcome back, listeners. We are back again, ready to jump into the main section of this evening's episode, which is the 5 mission lineup for Novacore. So
Novacore 2,
that's it.
Contronic Boogaloo.
Contronic Boogaloo. So what are we? How are we doing this, Kev? What are you thinking?
Well, I figure that we'll run through. We'll announce what the 5 missions are in that order. We'll give our initial thoughts on what we think of the 5 missions, the choice that Gavin made, maybe what we think he might have been thinking, and what we think of that mission lineup. And then we'll go through each of the missions. We'll break them down, how to win them, the extras, the bonuses, the challenges, anything that might be a bit of a curly for players that might forget. And then once we've sort of gone over each of the mission, we'll then talk about how we would build 2 lists going into this 5 mission event, and talk about how we'd split them up, the lists, and how we'd split up the lists and things like that.
Yeah, cool. So starting off then, the 5 missions that we're going to be reviewing are round 1, Countermeasures; round 2, Supplies; round 3, Supremacy; round 4, Rescue; round 5, Com Center. And Com Center is a season 10 mission. Hasn't been
Correct.
around
Yes,
since then.
that's right.
So, initial thoughts, Kev? What are you thinking in these 5?
Said it before. I fucking hate it. I hate. Oh, I hate. Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. Like, I mean, being I'm being hyperbolic, but like I can see what Gav's done in this mission lineup. He has gone. What are the 5 missions that require the least amount of guns and the most amount of like thinky?
Exactly.
And he's done it very deliberately to try to deter from this what he has been. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for him, but what I believe he's been concerned about since N4 dropped, which is the presence of the Alpha Strike and the presence of like aggressive, unhole shooting things. Shoot things first and then do the mission later. I think this is an attempt at 5 missions that not don't stop you from doing that, but they make it difficult.
Yeah. So there is a few sort of commonalities between them as well. They all can end in retreat. There's three of these missions have exclusion zones. All of them require some sort of specialist's presence, except rescue, kind of, because you can get the people without. You don't need to be a
That's right.
specialist to get
You don't need to be special for rescue, no.
for rescue, but there's still um, a
Yeah.
classified objective. But anyway, um, I agree. They are. It's like they're real. It's real big brain. Real big brain mission list here. It's like if you wanted a list of 5 missions that you could accomplish without really needing to kill your opponent at all, this is the list.
Yeah, I agree. I think on that as well, all 5 of these missions really require mobility. Like none of these 5 missions you can really do safely by just sitting in your DZ and shooting at your opponent. You need to be out. You need to be out in the midfield. You need to be pushing buttons. You need to be grabbing things, be it supply boxes or HVTs. You will not win these missions if you have a castle and shoot things, and you will not win these missions if you try to annihilate your opponent because a lot of the times those missions can still be done without having to kill your opponent.
That's right.
So I mean, yeah. So I like it, but I find it very challenging building 2 lists that I
I
enjoy taking.
I've had the hardest time coming up with lists because and like we can go into this when we talk about the lists that we are going to be bringing, but I'm playing White Banner, and so often I have at least 2 or 3 things that I'm deploying in the midfield. And when 3 of your missions have got occlusion zones, that makes that very difficult. Um,
Absolutely, yeah. That reduces their valuableness, their value. Infiltration becomes less value,
and
less valuable.
I did tell Gav that because of that, I am having to look at and experiment with units I've never even considered taking before, and that was he was pleased with that response.
That's yeah. No,
So
that's a good
I
takeaway.
can kind of appreciate that, but I still hate it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
How
Yeah.
dare you make me move out of my comfort zone? How dare you?
I yeah. I think that there's a lot of people who are gonna be feeling the same way as us. Hopefully.
Cool. Um,
So do I want to get into it? Step
yeah,
into it?
let's jump straight in. I've got countermeasures up on the screen here on
Okay.
my end. So we'll just run through the main objective for countermeasures, so that at the end of the game have accomplished more current mission objectives than the adversary, 2 objective points. At the end of the game, have accomplished the same number of current mission objectives as the adversary, 1 objective point, but only if at least one has been achieved. And then accomplish current mission objective, 1 objective uh, each, up to a maximum of 8. So, for those of you who haven't played Countermeasures, it's got like a game within a game mechanic happening where you have one classified deck between you and you draw 3 cards at the start. And then at the start of each turn, you can burn one of those cards. And then when you achieve one, you take that card and you keep it. And that's one that you've achieved. So, to get 10 points in this mission, you need to have achieved 8, at least 8 objectives from the classified deck that show up, and that 8 has to be more than the number that your opponent has achieved.
Yeah, that's the only way to get 10
There's
points.
3 the other thing is there's 3 HVTs on the table, and when you achieve an objective, when you achieve a classified objective against one of those HVTs, that HVT is removed from the table. So
Right.
which is important because it means you can't just spam everything on the one dude sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it also means you can only accomplish 3 HVT classifieds in any one game, but I think there's only 6 HVT classifieds, so
That's an
um,
interesting point. Well, yeah, it means that if there's 6 HVT classifieds, you've got 3 HVTs on the ground. I've got 3 HVTs on the ground, so they can all be achieved, but not by the same person.
that's true. Yeah, that's very true. So other things to bear in mind for this one as well, some extras. We have exclusion zones in this mission. We have blizzards in this mission, so 2 blizzards each get put down before deploying, but after choosing sites. And the F-13 turret as well is also in play in this mission as well, which is your little TR combi rifle that you put in the deployment zone, and it just shoots whatever it can see.
Yeah,
Which is kind of which is interesting, which is good that they put in this one. It means you can defend your HVTs with it a little bit.
that's right. And it's ballistic skill 10 as well, so it's not amazing, but who doesn't want a free little TR machine? 365er
Yeah.
as well.
I couldn't kill it in my turn.
Really?
I shot it like 3 times, and my opponent just kept rolling 15s and 16s for its armor save. I was like, well, that's fine. I'll just ignore it, and I'll go and get the HVT, and my opponent will then roll like a 3, 4, and a 5 to hit. I'm like, right, cool. Guess I'm dead.
That,
Like,
that'll
it just
that'll do it.
I'm like, all right, fair enough. Um, yeah. So in this mission, you need 3 classifieds minimum to get a major win. So when I say major, we're talking about like getting 5 points or more. So
Sure.
so obviously you need to get 3, and your opponent needs to get less than 3 in order to get
Because then
a
you'll
major.
have
So
three for one each of the ones you've achieved, and then two for having more than your opponent to get
yeah,
to that
so something to
five.
bear in mind if you're wanting that 5 points for the win. You need to get those 5 OP, and that's your the easiest way of doing it, or not the easiest way of doing it. It's the minimum way of doing it. Um, and some other things to bear in mind, I guess, for this mission, just thinking about it from Sunday, are having a list that can do a variety of classifieds.
That's it. And often when you've got a mission lineup, often uh, countermeasures or highly classified are the ones where you are writing a list specific for that mission because it does so heavily rely on the classified deck that is not necessarily something that you will be putting a lot of thought into otherwise. But where the entirety of the mission is based around scoring classifieds, it's something you've really got to be able to have at least something that can achieve pretty much all of them.
Yeah, yeah. And like, what things do you think of when you are like not so much building? I guess the general things to bear in mind when you are building a list is to have. I like to think about having redundancy because if you have one model, so a good example would be on the weekend, medtech, right? Medtech's great. He's a doctor and engineer. But if you run a speculo in their turn one and kill him, you've lost your doctor and your engineer in one order.
Yep.
And you may not have any other doctor engineers. And if a doctor engineer classified comes up, you can't do it. So I always like to think about redundancy in this list. So think about, multi-role models, things that can do multiple things. So you're looking at like veterans that might also be hackers that might have decharges, and then have replicate that across ways where you're not just having one hacker, one engineer, one doctor, one forward observer. You're having like multiples of those, and if you can, where possible, have a unit that can do multiple classifieds in one model. So something like not Jazz and Billy. What's her name? The other one from Nomads. Zoe and Pywell. Fantastic unit because she's a hacker, she's an engineer, she's a veteran, she's got decharges. Um, her bot has sensor. Like basically, they can do like 18 of the 20 classifieds just by themselves.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, but if you lose her in turn one because a speculo's run into your DZ, then you're like you've got
but
no redundancy.
that's the other thing as well to consider from an offensive point of view is that if your opponent does has put all of their eggs in one basket and has taken Zoe and Pywell, is that who it was?
William Pywell, yeah.
Yeah, Zoe and Pywell, uh,
There's Jazz and Billy too, but
or yeah, has taken those models and that's their ace in the hole sort of thing. If you can take that out, then you can really ruin their day in what they're able to achieve. If they
yeah.
have sort of really focused down that path. So
And something else I want to mention about this mission that I think is really important compared to something like say highly classified is tempo. Because you want to try and get as many classifieds as possible because the more classifieds you do, the more you burn through the deck. Might it's really tricky because sometimes you might have an engineer. You're just waiting for a test run to come up so you can repair the bot that went, the flash boss bot that went down in turn one. That may never come up because there's 20 cards in the deck, and if you're not burning through them because no one's accomplishing classifieds, you might you've got to really think about when you might want to use a specialist. I had an experience on Sunday where I had a hacker that was just waiting for a hacking classified to come up. It was also a veteran, so I could have done a veteran classified while that was up. I was like, oh, I'll wait for a hacking classified, which never came, surprisingly, because there's fucking heaps of them in the deck. Um, so if you've got another model that can go and do the hacking classified instead, or you've got other way, basically you want to be looking at other multiple ways of achieving a classified, not relying on that one to come up because it may never come up, and
Yeah.
it may come up in your opponent's turn and they do it, and then you can't do it.
That's it. And it's funny because like there is a real sort of luck of the draw type thing. Obviously, you got to remember that you if you're having a rough time with the draw, your opponent may also be having a rough time with the draw. But
Huge, yeah.
it is so um you can't rely on what is going to be coming up because um like it was the same thing in the game that I had with Josh on the weekend. We got the roughest ones came up turn one and turn two, and even turn three. And because we weren't really achieving much, we didn't burn through them, so we couldn't get
Mm.
to the nice, juicy, easy ones like experimental drug or like the test run, which we
Yeah,
both could have done because we both had our own unconscious guys around us. Because instead of trying to really achieve many classifieds, because there wasn't that many nice ones there, we just kind of started trying to kill each other. So
yeah, telemetry and those things as well. Yeah, and that's the other thing is if you do start going and killing each other, inevitably what will happen is you start going and killing things, and it'll get to your opponent's turn, and then they'll flip extreme prejudice, and they'll be like, "Oh, cool. I just need to chib one of your unconscious guys," and you're like, "Damn it! If it was in my turn, then I could have done it in my oh fuck." But I mean, that is one of the problems of countermeasures. I find is it's really down to the flop and how and where things come up and when they come up can really affect the outcome of the game. So you just got to try and you really focus on getting those classifieds, and if you can, kill the models that are the easiest to kill that can do the classifieds that you're worried about maybe not being able to get. Um, like the doctors and the engineers that sit at the back, or like the midfield hacker that's obviously just sitting there waiting. Like, go and discover that guy. Go and stab him or shoot him because you don't want them getting data scan before you get data scan. But
yeah.
it's so hard to do because you don't know when data scan's gonna come up. So it's a good mission. It's really just the luck of the draw, like you said.
An interesting take on it as well is sure you need to build a list that's going to be able to do the objectives, but also you can if you can put things in your list that you don't mind if that are expendable, things that can't achieve any of the objectives. And those are the things that you can use on your Alpha Strike and
Mm,
just
mm,
throw them at your opponent and be like, okay, this guy's here now. You have to deal with it. Um, that was a suggestion they made to me in one of the practice games that I had with using countermeasures, where I ran my tag up to my opponent's deployment zone, killed a few things, and then spent my last three orders getting him back to my own deployment zone so he was safe. When we were chatting about it after the game, he was like, "That tag that you ran into my deployment zone turn one,
keep going.
what objectives can it achieve?
Mm,
Like, it can't achieve any of them. There's not a single thing on the deck that it can do, except like, I mean, like, I don't think there's anything that it can do. Um,
yeah,
come to think of it,
there.
really, apart from like
The
coup de
grass.
grace
Yeah,
or something like that.
yeah.
So, and he's like, well, why didn't you just leave it in my deployment zone, sitting on top of my link team for me to then have to deal with, instead of running it back?
Yep.
I mean, sure, he's in an exposed position, but he's got three wounds. He's stacked to the nines in terms of his arsenal that he can deliver. And if he's in a like a corner position where nothing can really easily get a long range shot on it, then you're in a great position to really ruin my day, kind of thing. So that's
Mm.
something to consider as well. That um, if your opponent is spending orders on taking out things that can't do objectives, it means they're not doing objectives, and you're also not losing things that can do objectives on your side.
I think that's also just a point of what you made there about people who will be building a countermeasures list. general, not necessarily for Novacore, but in general, a building a list that is designed to do the missions, not designed to kill things. So take advantage of that and run a list that can kill things. I mean, run a list that can still do the mission, but but don't be afraid to push a tag or a shit or whatever, like some alpha strike piece down their throat and go, well, now you have to deal with this. You can't do your missions.
Yep.
Unless all their missions are like coup de grace or or
Predator.
extremist recovery or data scan, that could be a problem. But and I had that same thought. Whereas if I just went hard on my first turn in that last game, just rather than trying to like stick around getting the objectives, could have potentially gutted them of 5 orders. That might have made all the difference. But it's tough. It's a tough one, but I think it's something to bear in mind. Is
Yep.
to still think about leaning on that gas pedal if your opponent has taken a kind of null, not a null deploy list, but a list that's not going to engage directly because it's designed to do the missions.
Cool.
Like
So
you might surprise them.
I think we can move on to the next mission here, which is supplies. Supplies is a classic Infinity mission. Everyone's played supplies, right? Um, Main objectives are at the end of the game, control the supply box, 2 objective points for each supply box. At the end of the game, control more supply boxes than your adversary is worth 1 point. And at the end of the game, if your adversary does not control any supply boxes at all, that's 1 objective point, and there's also 2 classifieds worth 1 point each.
Mm.
So it's basically the table lineup is there's no exclusion zone or anything like that. There's just uh, three tech coffins lined up evenly along the center line of the table, and you got to run in and get them and bring them back.
Yeah, so there's no ITS extras in this mission. You do get a bonus for doctors and paramedics to extract the supply box, which is can be really useful because who hasn't failed several Whip 13 checks in a row. Being able to roll 2 dice on 16s or more is
Yeah, so
super
the
nice.
bonus is +3 to your whip and an extra die. So
Yeah, that's yeah, extra dice and +3, so you're pretty much guaranteed to get something out of the box in one
well,
go. I mean,
yeah,
it's a pretty high chance. It's a pretty high chance. You could roll double 20, but it's fairly high chance. I mean, you want to be stacking the odds in your favor, at all times in Infinity. Like no one wants to roll 1 dice, and like rolling 2 just feels a lot better. So yeah, there's a doctor paramedic bonus. There's intel com in this mission, which is I'm just gonna say it now. I really don't like intel com in these missions because they often get forgotten about, especially these counter espionage ones. And because what they do is they just cancel a classified that you get if I get a certain classified.
yeah.
So
So
it just
the plus symbols will cancel the cross symbols or something,
yeah, which
and it's
9 times out of 10 gets fucking forgotten
no
about
one
anyway.
no one ever does it. No one even remembers it. Um, I I
And
don't
also it's a
personally.
feels
I
bad.
don't. Yeah, and I don't like it. I don't think it's necessary. It's like an extra level of complexity that is not necessary.
Yeah. And
Um,
imagine you get to the end of a tight game and you've just won and then you go, "Oh, hang on. What was your classified? Oh, it was a thing. Oh, mine cancels yours. Oh, fuck." 'Cause there's nothing you can do about it. Like that's just down to the flop of the classifieds. If you happen to get that and they happen to get that, and you've just well, you've not lost a point, but it's just a net zero. Oh, so actually, no, sorry, you have lost a point
because
if
they
they have
haven't
that.
achieved their classified. They've kept it to
That's right.
counter yours.
Yeah. So I don't like that. I'm just gonna say that. I think CB could do something a bit more interesting there, that front. So ways to get majors in this mission, I think is really important because it
Mm-hmm.
has changed from last season. And I really like how what they've done with supplies this season to make it it's a bit harder to get a major. I think before it was a case of like if you had one supply box and your opponent had none, then that's a 5 point. You've got 5 points.
Yeah, and that's where
Um,
you had the tactic where people would really just pray that they were going second, and then on their final turn walk in a drop troop from the side and brap their opponent who was holding the box, and that was game basically.
that was game. Yeah. So now in order to get a major, you either have to control 2 supply boxes, or you have to control 1 supply box, and your opponent has to control 0, and you need to get at least 1 classified. So If you control two boxes and your opponent controls one, that's still a major. 5 points for you, or I think it's 2, 4, yeah, 5 points for you. But if you control only one supply box and your opponent controls zero, in that the same instance as you said, you also now have to get at least one classified. And there are two classifieds in this mission as well, which is quite important because up 2 points up for grabs. A mission is worth bearing in mind. So, what do you think is what would you consider important, or what things would you be considering in this mission?
Um, I still think going second is an advantage because the game is scored at the end of the game, right?
Mm,
And so you get to have that last action and that last move. In saying that, I'd probably want to look at building a list that's got some sort of midfield presence as well as some sort of decent ARO as well, so that you can stop. You don't just leave it wide open for your opponent. Um,
mm.
because if that happens, then they can just grab them, run and castle up, and then you're gonna have a real hard time of getting them back out. Um, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I I tend to prefer to go second in this mission. Um, Tend to anyway, because I find going first puts you at a bit of a tricky situation. On the one hand, you might be in a position where you can just go and grab box or maybe even two and pull them back to your opponent, pull them back to your DZ. More often than not, you're gonna not have enough orders to do that. Gonna have to probably chew through a few orders to get some AROs down. You might only have time to get one box and pull it back to your DZ. In which case, you've got one box. There's still two boxes out there for grabs, and you've probably not done enough damage to your opponent to actually give them any real real headaches. Whereas if you go second, you can see what your opponent does. You can grab the other two boxes, and then you've won anyway because you've got two boxes to their one, and they have to still come and get to you. So I often do prefer going second because I like to see what my opponent does. Does he try? Do they try to go after the box, or do they try to alpha strike me? If they alpha strike me, probably not going to do that much damage because I'm playing Shaz, and you can't really alpha strike me. In which case, you're either going to be left out in the midfield. I can get to you, or you've taken one box um, and I can just grab the other two. So that's where I find, yeah, definitely midfield super important because you can use that to grab your own boxes, but you can also use it to defend against the boxes. So having like midfield hackers,
Repeat like a
midfield,
repeated presence in the
yep,
midfield, mines,
your
all that
presence,
sort of stuff.
and crazy koalas, any of those sorts of things, deployables. I know in the last game of supplies I played, I had two hackers in the midfield and a guided missile bot. If my opponent decided to go, and one of them was a hidden ploy hacker, so if my opponent did decide to go and get one of the boxes, spotlight them. What? All right, well, I'll reset on a -3 while I'm walking back with the box. You can't get, so you either reset and you've wasted a couple of orders resetting and you're not quite as far back as you'd hoped, or you've failed to reset and now I just spotlight, now I just guided missile you and take that box, or not so much take the box back, but now that box is dropped and it's anyone's game.
And they've got to spend more effort to then pick it back up again. I mean, you can if you've got something that's real fast, you could get it back to your deployment zone and hand it off to someone else because you can drop the box and someone else can come pick it up.
Mm.
But that's still making your life more complicated.
Yeah, I think mobility and smoke are two things you should really consider when building a list into this mission. Um, Something to block line of fire from your aero pieces. And if you've got a motorcycle, the 112 from Ariadna springs to mind as being a doctor that's 8-4 move and has its own smoke. For 18 points, it's not breaking the bank. It's really cheap. It's going to get the box, and it's at least going to be able to get back with it,
Yeah,
unless your opponent has MSV.
that's an amazing piece. Considering it's a doctor as well, or paramedic or whatever,
Yeah, doctor. Yeah.
you're getting the bonus, which is so important. So
Mm.
your chances of actually picking it up first go are much higher.
Yeah.
Um,
Things like in Hack Islam, we've got Tuaregs with their hidden deploy infiltrating doctors. There's a whole bunch of infiltrating paramedics as well. Those sorts of things really useful. Doctor Worm, 6-4 move doctor, who actually a really good point as well, because although slave drones or servant bots can't extract something from the box, they can still pick up an extracted box.
Is that right?
Yeah, because they the Doctor Worm or whoever it is, med tech, whatever the thing is, extracts the supply box, but after that, anything can pick it up.
Yeah. Okay.
So a servant can pick it up. So Worm can go and grab one out of the middle, hand it over to his slave, go over, grab another one, hand it over to the other slave, go grab the third one, and then he's got the third one, and then all run back. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen in reality, but it is possible. You can do that all with one model, and because they're slaves, they can go anywhere on the table.
Yep.
Can just be, they can just like disperse across back into your DZ.
That's interesting.
So
Yeah.
all sorts of things like Fiddler, thinking about that as well. Those peripherals can't extract, but they can hold. So consider that.
That's right.
I can't think of any others off the top of my
No,
head,
it's
or like
this
specialists
is
with
one
all.
of the less hard thinking missions. So it's nice
Oh
to
yeah, actually that's a good point. Yeah, supplies nice and easy.
yep.
In isolation, it's fine.
Yep. Next up we've got
Yeah,
Supremacy. Let me just jump to the Supremacy page and we can have a look through that. Have you got it in front of yourself there, Kev? Do you want to start reading it
have
out?
I have because I conveniently put the page numbers up on the
Oh,
thing so
geez.
you know where they
You're clever.
are. So supremacy. So at the end of each game round, so this is a dominating mission. So you've got think of the mission, the table being split into quarters. So you got your DZs on each side, and then you got the middle of the table split into four equal
Quadrants.
halves. Quadrants. That's the word I'm thinking of. The console in the middle of each quadrant. So the idea is you have to dominate the quadrants, more quadrants than your opponent, and push those buttons. So at the end of each game round, dominate more quadrants than than the enemy, and at the end of the game, have hacked a console, and you get one objective point for each hacked console, up to a maximum of 3 points. Sorry, and then at the end of each game round, you dominate more, you get 2 points. So it's 2, 4, 6, then 7, 8, 9 for the three consoles, and then one classified. Uh, so uh, so what's interesting about this one is you have to dominate. Oh, sorry. What's interesting about this one is it scored every game round
Every game
for
round,
the
exactly.
quadrants. You have to dominate more quadrants. So if you've got two, Nick, and I've got two, then no one gets anything.
No one gets any points. So
Uh,
you really do need to push. You need to have three to their one or two to their
they're one or
one.
one
Yeah,
to their
if
none.
yeah, that's right. So
More than.
yeah,
And you can get those juicy 2 points. Interestingly, about the hack consoles is they are not flipped; they can be shared.
both players can hack the same console and get the points for it.
Yeah. So don't worry. So don't think about you pushing buttons early because they can't get taken away from you in this mission. So often when we play these missions like Com Center or any other button pushing mission, often you're like, oh, I don't want to push it too early because my opponent will just push it back. Doesn't matter. You can push it early if you want to. It's yours. They can't take it away from you. I think in the old season used to be able to destroy them, but they've removed that now in N4. It was like you could push the button and then destroy it, and then no one else could push it.
Okay.
That was an old tactic, which again didn't happen very often, but it was there. I think actually, if you look at the comlog, there's still comlog app because we're looking at the ITS document tonight. There's still the structure, the unit profile for the consoles is on the app, but it doesn't actually have any bearing on the game because you can't destroy them.
Yep. The
Um,
other important thing, I mean, in terms of extras for this mission as well, we do have a defensive
Extras,
turret.
yes. Oh, and this one, yeah, right, there
Yeah.
is.
So
Ah,
we've got a defensive turret in Supremacy, the
Supremacy.
same as we have in Countermeasures,
Hmm. Hmm.
and another extra rule that you can't forget is the Shazvasti rule. Troopers possessing the Shazvasti special skill that are inside a zone of operation count while they are in the Shazvasti / embryo state or any non-null state.
Yeah, so you gotta remember to double tap those Shazvasti fools.
That's right.
If you leave them alive, they will still count for the points at the end of the round, which can be quite nasty if you leave something like Malignos alive, which is 30 plus points, just sitting there in a zone, um, scoring points for you, even though he's not doing anything. Pretty
That's
great
it.
though. There's and on that there's also baggage as well. So your baggage bots are really useful in this game. Echidrons, those sorts of things. Chaxes, Agariba, she's worth 102 points in this game.
Jeez.
106 points. Yeah, because she's got
Jeez.
baggage and she's 86 points. So it's like,
Far out.
yeah, that's coming out into Avatar territory of points in a zone.
Yeah, that's it.
There is a hacker bonus in this mission as well for the consoles, so you can the extra dice and the +3 if you are pushing one of those consoles. Again, really useful just to make sure you get them in one order rather than two or three or five. Which we've all had those PTSD moments. We're just looking at that 17 just rolling every time. Um, and there is another intel com in this one. This one's
Ugh.
this one's provisions. So this one is really useful to remember because if you have one of the classifieds with the globe on it, which I think is like telemetry, data scan, basically the hacking ones, I think. You get an extra point if you do it.
So it means that classified objective, that classified is worth 2 points instead of one.
2 points.
So
Yeah,
when
which
you're picking, when you draw your two to pick one,
mm,
there might be one that's double the value of the other one.
yeah, which can make all the difference, right? That's an extra point that your opponent may not be able to get. Um, so it's really useful. It's not often in the dominate quadrant missions. It's often like the intel com where you use to add the points from the card into the zone. But this mission doesn't have that. It's got this extra point if you've got the globe. Only up to a maximum of 10 points. Obviously, you can't score 11. But, that's worth bearing in mind too.
Yeah.
Um,
So thoughts on this mission in terms of tactics and that sort of thing. For me, it lines up pretty much exactly the same as everything that we said for supplies. Right? You want to have a midfield presence. You want to have your dispersion of your force, and you want to have the appropriate specialists that are going to get you that extra bonus when you're trying to push those buttons. Um, Further than that, though, because it's not a retrieval mission, it is a domination mission in terms of the
mm,
space you're trying to dominate. You, I think, like going first in Supremacy is super super hard because it's scored at the end of every round. So that
yeah.
means at the end of every at the after you've gone first, at the end of your opponent has their turn to put things where they need to be. At the end of the second turn, your opponent then gets another option to put the things where they need to be to outweigh your stuff in the quadrants. And every turn it's the same. So going first is very tricky. I would even probably consider if my opponent selected deployment, I'd probably consider uh, deploying first and going second.
Wow. Yeah. Really.
Yep.
Hmm. Yeah. I depending on the army, but I think that is a worthwhile tactic in this mission. I mean, like we've said before on countermeasures, like you can if you want to go hard and just try and kill your opponent's specialists. Supremacy, if you happen to go first and you have got some punch, you can just try to like move into your opponent's side of the table, and take out what you can, set up and suppressive fire, throw down mines, and just be like, come out of your deployment zone. If you want these points, you gotta come get it. That won't work every time. That won't work with every force, but I have seen it used to really good effects. Just fucking bum rushing them and just sitting in their half, move a couple of things into your one, a couple of baggage bots into your two closest halves, and they have to come to you because it's not that often. What happens in Supremacy is I move to the middle, you move to the middle, none of us get points. Then after that, that's when you start to find out who's going to win.
That is
But
an interesting point, Kev. I've not really thought about that before. Where instead of just consolidating your two halves on your side, is just go right over, and instead of the game happening in the middle of the table, the game happens outside of their deployment zone.
Yeah, and if you've got AD in this game, in this mission, really useful. Be on your watch out for AD, especially if your opponent's going second. You can just walk on a 20 to 30 point model, kill some stuff, and then take a zone from you with like really very little in return. But I think, yeah, I do agree. I think going second is probably preferable. Force your opponent to make a mistake, force your opponent to overcommit. You will get those players that'll be like, right, I'm going first. I'm just gonna do as much damage as I can and hold up in your half of the table and force you to be back.
Oops.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess on that as well, not just AD is useful. Hidden deployment is very useful as well, especially that with infiltration. You can again reveal it to surprise your opponent with an extra 30 points in a zone. Impersonators really useful in this one as well because they already start in those zones. If you can force your opponent to anchor at least 50 points in one of their own quadrants, that will also um, limit their ability to push forward. Which is why baggage is really important because if you've got an 8 point baggage bot, it's suddenly a 28 point baggage bot. If you do that plus a couple of line troopers, you've got more than enough to hold off quadrant against any individual walking on from the side or walking into your half.
Yep.
A common tactic I will do with my Shazvasti is put a speculo in each of your opponent's quadrants. It's 32 to 34 points that just sitting in the quadrant doing nothing else. And my opponent has to dedicate at least that many points in those two quadrants at all times, stop them to avoid losing those quadrants. Um, if you have baggage, then it makes that job a lot easier.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Um, in terms of like, and that's a bit of a different take on how you might use something like a speculo in this type of a mission because so often it's just considered that assassin piece, but really
Mm-hmm.
it's a good few points, 30 mid 30s in terms of points, and yeah, sitting that in your opponent's quadrant and making them deal with it or leave stuff behind is it can be huge.
Absolutely. Um, and I think I made a mention here. This could be a mission where a tag could be quite useful, because you've got a big stompy robot that's 70 to 80 points, that can just claim a zone all by itself. Like I think that's worth mentioning. Even though we did mention this lineup is specialist focused, if you have an expensive piece that can doesn't necessarily want to get too close to an opponent, so like we're not talking so we're talking, the tags or the multi HMGs, the ones that's like to sit just outside the deployment zone and anchor that zone for you. They can be really useful because they're speedy as well, so they can move from one quadrant to another quadrant wherever they need to be to 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 solidify that position.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Okay, so that day one?
That's day one.
Run done. Okay, that's day one. Oh, fuck. I'm glad it's supremacy. I'm glad that's a day one. Countermeasures is like a bit of a brain thing. As in Supremacy, they're fun missions. I enjoy them. But day two is going to be
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
yeah, day two. They're both very uh cognitively intense missions, but there's only two of them. So we don't have to play three games in a row on day two. But we'll probably
Oh
be
no,
hungover as well, so that doesn't help. Um,
exactly. Um, did we mention that we haven't had Novacore in 3 years? So yeah, I think it's going to be. Did we also mention that the venue has a BYO? So yeah, we're gonna be still drunk possibly.
oh,
So
that's it.
um, maybe all this cognitive loading might not matter when we're just like rolling dice and those beers.
I think
Um,
that's the way. Like considering how much work we put in, I mean, I put in so much work on all my lists and done so many practice games. For me to come 17th on the weekend out of 20 people, it's just like completely shattered my confidence. I don't think I know what I'm doing,
to
but maybe I've just been thinking about it too much. Maybe it just need to take a step back and just chill out and just play the game.
I'm glad you said that. I mean, I came sick, then I felt I did absolutely terribly. So I think I need to
Hey, there was 11 people between
forget.
you and I.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to sympathize with your position.
Yeah, that's okay. Just punching down is what it's called, Kev. Punching down.
Yeah, it's like I know how you poor people feel. No, I'm
is
not.
this some sort of poor people joke? Is this some sort of uh, bad player joke that I'm too good at this game to understand?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can't. I'm never below the top 10. No, I'm not even me at all. I am good.
Um, cool. Let's move on to the round four then.
Right.
Rescue, where we still
Yeah.
we really start having to think about things. So, rescue. I'll talk about the deployment and what the table looks like before going through how you score in it because I think that'll visualize it better for you. So you have a exclusion zone at the very edge of the exclusion zone, but inside of it, on the other side of the table, equally spaced along that line, you have four civilians. And then on your side of the table, your opponent has four civilians. The idea is that you need to go over to your opponent's side of the table, grab your civilians, and bring them back into your deployment zone or into your dead zone to get points. So uh, you've at the end of the game, for each civilian in the Civivac state, you get one objective point. If you've got the same number of civilians in Civivac state in your dead zone as the adversary has in their dead zone, at the end of the game, you get one objective point, but only if you've got at least one. Have more civilians in the Civivac state in your dead zone than the adversary has in their dead zone is worth two objective points. And at the end of the game, have more civilians in Civivac state in your deployment zone than the adversary has in their deployment zone is three objective points. And then you get one classified worth 1 point.
Right. Wait,
So
how do you get to 10?
you have to get 10, you need to have more in your own deployment zone for three,
Oh,
more
right, yeah.
in your own dead zone for another two,
Yeah.
one classified, and have all four of them synced.
Ugh, it's gross.
No one's getting 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think fucking that's not happening.
It's not going to happen,
No one's getting 10. You'd be
right?
lucky if you get 5. I think Val's
I've played this mission 4 times now, like in the past month, and in none of those games has anyone synced more than one civilian.
mm,
No, I don't
I
know if
think
we're doing I don't know if we're doing it wrong, but I don't know how you win this mission well.
think Val on the weekend got 6 points, and I was trying to figure out how he did that. So he must have gotten
But I
two,
mean, there's so many
four,
different
five.
ways you can get points as well. It's like spread out all over the place with are they in the deployment zone or are they in the dead
Yeah.
zone? In my game, right, I got one civilian back to my deployment zone. My opponent got one civilian back to his deployment zone. That, because we had the same amount in our deployment zone, is worth no points.
Right. Oh yeah, because you got yeah. That's the thing about this mission that's weird is it's not your deployment zone. It's your dead zone you got to consider too. So you've
That's
got to have
right.
something, got something in your deployment zone and something in your dead zone. Get the most amount of points. If you have two civilians in your deployment zone, doesn't matter. Well, if you're assuming your opponent has none, you actually need to make sure that you put one in your dead, one in your deployment to get the most amount of points. Which feels counterintuitive. Yeah, it feels really
It's
counterintuitive.
tricky. It's real tricky. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. And only 1 point. If you go through all that drama, pull a civilian almost all the way back to your dead zone, but not quite. It's just you just get 1 point. It's fine. That's all you get.
yeah.
Um,
Now,
yeah.
I think it's important that we go through like even more so than going through all the specifics that are in this mission. It's got no extras, right? There's nothing
There's no
fancy.
extras. There is the exclusion zone, like you mentioned that
Yeah,
before.
exclusion zone. The dead zone is the area between your deployment zone and the exclusion zone. That's called the dead zone. Um, on top of that, uh, there's four civilians. Now, to synchronize with the civilian, the civilians, you get points by having civilians in certain positions in the Civivac state. To get them into the Civivac state, you have to do the synchronize civilian skill, which is in this document. I believe it is on page 9. Yeah,
Yeah.
page 9. So,
Just before you get to that, I just want to quickly don't know if we mentioned this before. We were talking about the points, but how do you actually score a major in this mission? Minimum way to do it is to have one civilian in your DZ synced. Opponent has none, and you've done your classified. That's the minimum way to get 5.
the
It's
minimum
3.
is because you got 3 for your deployment zone,
Yep,
1 for having
one
the guy synced, and the classified
one
is
for
5.
classified. 5. So
Or
that's huh? Well,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, that's
That's the
how
only.
you get 5.
Yeah,
To,
or obviously more civilians, but that's more work. So the minimum way is one civilian in your deployment zone and you're classified.
yeah,
Don't do your classified, you're only getting 4 points.
or you sync all 4 civilians, don't
And
get
you're
them
classified.
anywhere, and do your classified.
Yeah, that seems that also doable, I guess. Yeah, I guess you can get 2 into the dead zone, which will mean that's 2, 4, 5, 6 points. It's basically it seems sounds easy. It's not because your opponent just gets if they get 1 as well, it cancels out all of your work. Um, as you said, if you've got one civilian in your DZ and you went first, you're like, yeah, I'm winning, woo! But you've got nothing watching your own civilians. Your opponent just goes out and grabs your civilian, runs back to the DZ with it, cancels out your points, and you end up with a 1-all draw.
That's exactly what happened in my game.
Yeah. If you had it in your but hang on, this is weird. If you have more civilians in your dead zone, so they
That's only
don't
worth
get back.
2.
Okay, so if you got one in your DZ, oh, that's weird, right? Okay, so if you if you have so
If
you and I are
if
playing
they
next.
sync 1 and bring it to their deployment zone, you sync 2 and put 1 into your dead zone, and the other one goes nowhere, then you're still on 3 each.
Hmm. Yeah, if you bring one back to your dead zone and I bring one back to my deployment zone, it's 4-3.
Yep. So,
Otherwise, if you go an extra few inches and get into the deployment zone, it's 1-all.
oh my goodness.
So, so it's a rescue.
You,
And the thing is, you can't just measure out where the dead zone is either. Like you can't. It's like it's gonna be like frontline all over again. You're like, shit. Is this? Am I in my dead zone or am I still in my deployment zone or am I not even in the dead zone yet?
can you not
Do I check?
can you not measure where it is? Because
Well, not not
surely
not
for
not
like,
during the game.
but
During
like
the
if I'm
game.
trying to bring a drop troop in, I've got to know where I'm allowed to
Oh,
put it.
yeah, for the drop trip, yeah, because that's a legal requirement. But this is just like frontline. You just gotta guess it. You make sure you put your eight. Oh, because there are also in addition to your 4 civilians, got a HVT. So you've got 5 civilians on the table.
Yeah, 4 civilians, 1 HVT. Yeah.
So what you do is you put your HVT, the 16-inch line, and keep it. Oh, I guess that's where your dead zone is anyway. So
Well,
as long as all of your guys are there, then you know where the dead zone starts.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
fine. As long as you're past your own civilian, then you're fine.
Yeah. Or you pass your opponent's civilians.
Your opponent's civilians, yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Did you
right,
want?
sorry. Going back,
No.
I just wanted to
Did you want to
freshen
talk
up.
about how to synchronize a civilian? Because it's important.
Yes, let's talk about all the ways you can and can't synchronize with a civilian.
Okay. Only models, not markers, can perform this common skill. Uh, any marker which declares it is automatically revealed. Makes sense. Troopers must be in silhouette contact. Okay, that's easy. The target civilian cannot be in the civivac state with an enemy model. A model cannot declare the common skill if the following is true. If it already controls 2 civilians in the civivac state already, it possesses the impetuous special skill, or has gained it via frenzy. If it's peripheral, if the trooper is a remote, so a REM, not a tag with remote presence. Tags with remote presence are not REMs; they are tags. If the category is REM as the type, if it's performing a coordinated order or being part of a fire team. That's how you can perform the synchronized civilian skill, which then puts you in the civivac state. which has more rules associated with it. So a trooper
Hang on.
successfully.
Wait,
Yeah, go.
wait a minute. To perform a synchronized civilian, how do you actually do it? So like, what do you need to do?
You need to. Oh, you need to roll a whip check. Yeah, sorry, I didn't.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You need to do a whip check, but you get +3.
Get
And
+3.
and if you pass, then he's in the Civivac state. If you fail that roll, the civilian becomes hostile, and you then lose that +3 mod.
Hmm.
If the civilian's hostile, does that mean they start shooting at you? No. No, they don't have any weapons or
No.
anything. So yeah, don't worry about that. So
No,
the
they
being
don't.
hostile, all that means is that +3 that you got to roll in the first one, is no longer there. I think that's a real kick in the teeth because if you just failed your +3 whip roll, guess what? Now that roll's even harder.
Hmm.
That's
I know.
so rough.
It's like you haven't offered them the right amount of candy to get in your van. It's like, "Oh, I don't like licorice. Fuck off, you weird old man. I'm not getting in
Yeah.
your van.
Ugh,
Gummy
licorice.
bears. No, I mean, I would get in an old man's van if you offered me licorice. I love licorice. It's great.
I'm sure you would, Kev.
Anyway, so yeah, so that just yeah, bear that in mind. Yeah, you've got to pass the whip roll to get into the.
What?
Sorry, it's just doing. I was just thinking of It's Always Sunny with the troll tool. Anyway,
You got
um,
to pay the troll toll to get into that boy's
with the
soul.
troll tool. Yeah. Um. So sorry, as you're saying, the
Okay,
Civivac state.
right. Once we've succeeded synchronizing the civilian, we are now in the Civivac state. A trooper. Sorry, let me just cough.
Remembering to mute his
That's
microphone
right.
there.
I got to remember to mute my microphone each time. A trooper successfully uses the synchronized civilian common skill on a civilian. This model is called the controller and is the reference trooper for coherency purposes. Effects: civilians are always activated with the same order the controller, executing the same skills, uh, but limited to short movement skills. If the civilian in civivac
Ooh.
state does not meet the requirements of a skill uh, of the order is declared by the controller, then the civilian performs an idle instead. Does that mean that means they can't jump?
Can't jump, they can't climb.
And if the controller declares cautious move, which is not a short movement skill, it's a long movement skill, the civilian is
Oh.
going to idle.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, that's a good bear that in mind, folks. Like if you're trying to climb up the side of a building to get your dude to safety, he's just gonna be like, nah,
No,
I'm staying at the bottom.
you got to use the steps.
Yeah, I mean that could have some implications, especially if you have super jump,
Yep.
because you'll super jump and they'll just be like, I will not.
Yeah, I'm not jumping up the side of this building. What is that?
Yeah, just be like, nope.
So yeah, so the civilian in the
Well,
civivac state.
climbing plus will work fine though, because it's still a short movement skill.
Okay.
They can well obviously they can't climb up as well, but they'll continue moving around the building
Mm.
or whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, so the civilian in civivac state must observe the coherency rules in regarding to its controller, and the player must perform a coherency check at the start and the end of each order or ARO. So, cancellations. The state is immediately cancelled if the civilian fails a coherency check, breaking coherency with the controller before measuring any declared movement. The state is immediately cancelled as soon as a controller becomes part of a fire team. So
For you, Val,
you can't
remember
join a
that one,
fire
pal.
team if you've got a civilian attached to you. The state is cancelled at the end of the order in which the controller enters isolated state, any null or immobilized state, or any other state that indicates so.
Now,
Um,
I want to mention that real quick. Immobilized state is interesting. So if you have, I don't know, like heavy infantry that has just picked up a civilian, if you happen to carbonite that same heavy infantry, they will disconnect from the civilian.
that's handy.
So that could be very handy. Yeah. Especially, same with glue guns and all that sort of stuff too. But I was just thinking about it today. I was like, oh, carbonite would work for getting rid of. If you can't engage or kill that tag that's got the civilian, you can carbonite it and or hit it with the M. Then it'll still let go of the civvy.
Yep. At the end of the order, the state is also cancelled if the controller enters a state that replaces the model with a marker, so camouflage,
Makes sense.
impersonation, holo echo, and the controller can cancel civivac state voluntarily by spending a short skill. Not that you would ever want to. Um,
Okay,
yeah. So
so
now we've got that out of the way.
yeah. So something I want to bring up to folk because it caused considerable confusion on the weekend and today. Rules in this are not the same as Comlog. Comlog is, I think, missing a couple of key points. One of them being that I don't think Comlog mentions that you can't be part of a fire team. I think it mentions coordinated order only, whereas the ITS document does mention fire team. So you cannot be part of a fire team, which also therefore moves the possibility of fire teams that become regular and lose their impetuous when they're in a fire team. They still can't sync because they have to because they're in a fire team. So they can't sync with Gaki's, the monk team, the Morlock team, any of those ones that remove impetuous. What it does work for quite well and works really well in season 13 is bikes, because bikes actually they if you want to
You
remove their
can
impetuous,
voluntarily get rid of impetuous. Yeah.
get rid of it, which gives you an 8-4 or an 8-6 model that can pick up a civilian and run away with it, which is really good. Um, you can only have one civilian per model, but if you're specialist, you can have two. And I think that's might be another error on Comlog because I think Comlog doesn't specify how many you can do. Just as you can't have more than two, but in the ITS document it says somewhere here that
It
you can
says
only
you
have
can't.
one.
It says you can't sync an extra one if you've already got two.
Yeah, but if you go to the rescue, this is good radio. Page 48, back to rescue. Enter penguins. Players cannot place. No, no, that's not it. Players can use. No. Where is it?
No,
I read it today.
isn't it? Doesn't it just cover? That's already covered in the Civivac and synchronized civilian
I here you go.
rules.
In this scenario, specialist troops can have up to two civilians in the civivac state at the same time. Other troops able to declare a synchronized civilian can only have one.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's another new rule for you there. So yeah,
Where's it say that?
in the rescue
Yep.
mission. So under page 48,
Yeah.
under civilians, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph. I'll bring it
Specialist
up
troops
on.
can have two civilians in a Civivac state. Right. So
Yeah.
an interesting point on that as well. Tags are not civilians. Sorry, tags are not specialists. The tag pilot is a specialist.
Yeah.
So
So the tag
if
palette can have two.
so the tag pilot can have two, but if he then gets inside his tag while he's got two attached, one of them will drop.
Yeah, will one of them drop or will both of them drop? Because I don't know how that works. It's so weird.
I would assume only I would assume based on this clause, one of them would.
Yeah.
Um, because like
That comes.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah, I think it comes back to a point that I was looking at earlier. Fuck, what was it now? I've forgotten. Oh, so in order to use the Civivac skill, you cannot be impetuous. There's
yep,
nothing about it once you are in the Civivac state. If you become impetuous through frenzy, you don't. It doesn't. It's not in the cancellation clause. You don't immediately lose the civilian if you become frenzy. If you become impetuous from frenzy, you can't pick them up once you've got them. It's fine.
okay.
Yep. Are you? I mean, that's just what it doesn't. It's not in the cancellation clause. So,
Mm-hmm.
so if you're an Asawira, as example, who has frenzy, and you pick up a civilian, and then you shoot something dead, you don't immediately. Well, you don't next turn
Yeah,
lose a civilian.
if you become if you've already got him synced. Okay. Yep, that
If you've
makes
already got
sense.
them synced and you become impetuous after you've synced something, then you don't immediately drop them because it's not part of the cancellation clause. However, if you had them when you weren't in a fire team, then you join a fire team, it's in the cancellation clause and you lose the civvy that way.
Okay.
Then on the peripheral side of things, I've had some people ask me this question and I want to clear it up is peripheral is what is the it speaks of the peripheral. So you can't be a peripheral and sync a civilian. the controller of the peripheral, so using Fiddler as an example, Jackbots can't grab them, Fiddler can.
Gotcha.
Like it's when people say with the peripheral rule, Fiddler doesn't have the peripheral rule.
The robots do.
Robots do. Um, so Antibody and Bolts on the chat just saying the Garda Auxilia can, yes, but the Auxilia can't. The Garda can. Doesn't having an Auxilia doesn't preclude him from getting the civilian in the first place.
That's right, but the Auxilia itself cannot sync.
Yeah. Well, also because it's a REM.
That too. That too.
So.
Oxbot.
Right.
Yeah, Oxbot.
Oxbot, not Auxilia.
Yeah, yeah.
My bad.
Yep.
I know players out there going, "No, it's not talking about the right thing." I'm like, "Hey, you're right. I'm not." So exclusions on this mission as well. I think you mentioned that too. Cannot civivac your own civilians. That's in the mission
No,
as well,
no, no,
which
no,
is
no, no. Players can only synchronize their own civilians. You
yeah.
can't.
Sorry,
You can't.
what did I say?
You said you can't civivac your own civilians.
Oh, sorry. When I say your own civilians, I mean you
The
can't
ones on
civivac
your side of the
your
table,
your
which are your
side.
opponent's civilians.
Yeah. Now, actually, small thing then on the deployment aspect. If I'm playing you, Nick,
Yep.
I'm putting my own civilians on my side of the table. I'm not putting my civilians on your side of the table because it's just too much of a pain in the ass.
You want me to come up and sync your models and then drag them around the table?
Yeah, it can't be. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. Can I be fucked?
No, no, no,
Does it
no. The
matter?
ones, the
Does it
ones that
matter?
I'm interacting with are going to
Does
be
it
my
matter?
models. It doesn't.
Because
Yeah, because they're my civilians. My
you
civilians go
roll
on the other side of the table. That's how it works.
you roll for sides. You roll for initiative. I go first. You decide to pick sides, and then you put your civilians on my side of the table.
Yep. Because like
Yeah.
it's not like
I
we
mean,
get to pick where the civilians go because it's in a prescribed position. So
yeah. I guess if you're precious about me not touching models, then I guess so. Oh, but on that, they still have to follow the rules for HVTs. So this is one that Gavin's gonna have to think really carefully about. I mean, and for Com Center, but because they're
because they
civilians.
have to be placed on the ground.
Yes. So on the weekend at House of War, I don't think every table played that way because it was just gonna be too much of a fuck around to move terrain out of the way. So some of the civilians were placed on rooftops. They were all accessible. They weren't all on ground level because it would have involved a massive change of the table. So
It makes sense for them to all have to be on ground level though if they're not going to be able to do climb or jump skills, right? They can only do short movement skills.
that's a
So
good point. Yeah, but it does make the tables does force the tables to look a certain way because you've got to make sure you've got that 16-inch strip of like
doesn't have to be
thing.
the whole 16-inch strip. It just has to be the point where they go.
I know, but if you think about the size of buildings, they might be 8 inches square. That could fuck you. It could make things a bit tricky. I guess is why he's put it as the first round of day two.
So you
If he has
can
to change some
so there's
tables,
time to
time to change
make
the tables a
changes
bit.
if they need to. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about for this mission? What's like something
Mate,
that
I
would
have
be?
no idea to be honest. This one is just so hard because like it's every time, like I said before, I've played this quite a number of times already, and every time I just find it so hard to achieve anything. So
Mm,
honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like it's more so than any other mission if you really punch your opponent in the face. So you've got that free reign of tables and take out their main pieces, then you can kind of do what you want. And if you can achieve that turn one and turn two, and then spend your last turn sinking and getting back home, then you're home and hosed.
yeah, I think that of all the 5 missions, this is the one mission you can play Annihilation with. Um, it's not because it's very difficult for your opponent to um, do the objective because they need to get to your DZ. But I think this is one you can do. But again, running the uh, theme here is mobility. Mobility, mobility, mobility. Like you need to be able to get out your DZ, push through, get to the thing. You need smoke. You need fast movement. You need and durability, right, to be able to like weather the storm of gunfire that you're grabbing the civilians. But I
Yep.
think ability is really huge.
Impersonators, if you've got them, they can deploy in that dead zone on the other side of the
Mhm.
table, right next to where your civilians are. That's great. If you've got cheap infiltrators, if you are willing to roll the dice and see if you can deploy them on that side of the table, that's worthwhile as well, because that means instead of you having to trek all the way to the other side of the table, you can already be there to sink one of your dudes.
Yeah, yeah. I think impersonators are good because well, Fides and Speckles have smoke, so they can smoke up and grab the dude. Um, it's a lot of it's still a lot of orders. You know, you got to get all the way back to your DZ. Um, it's,
You don't have to get all
you
the
know,
way back there in the same
well,
turn.
not in one turn, no. But I mean, if you can like relay the civilian a little bit, you know, get a little bit of the way in turn one, in turn two, you know, get it. And because the difference between this mission and something like that's sort of similar as supplies is in supplies, you know, if you get a box and get halfway to your DZ and die, your opponent just grabs his box and brings it back. But in this mission, your opponent can't do that. The civilian is stuck where it is until you grab it again.
Yep.
You could just like, get as far as you can. If your opponent kills you in turn one, turn two, you move up a camel mark or whatever, grab the next, you know, move it another little bit back. It's not going to move the other way. It's only going to move closer towards your DZ. So that might be a way of getting at least some points on the board
The other
because
thing to consider as well is you want to try and make sinking the civilians as hard as possible for your opponent. Things like
yes,
littering mines and other deployables, uh, repeaters as well.
yep, repeaters
Um,
again, guided missiles again because
the
you can just,
your
you know, nuke them.
opponent's civilians are only 4 inches outside of your deployment zone, so
Mm.
you can just put a hacker in your deployment zone on the edge or a repeater near them, and they're covered by that hacking radius, or a mine or something like that. Even short range ARO pieces with templates
Yep.
right up there on the line. Your opponent's going to have to deal with that stuff before they can sync with the
I
civilian.
found I found my game of rescue on Sunday tigers to be very useful because they've got sixth sense. You put them on the 12-inch line, or you put them inside zone of control of your own civilian.
Your opponent's civilians.
Your your opponent's civilian, sorry. And your opponent comes to sink that civilian, you just roll a dodge on a 16 and then move 4 inches into line of fire, and then they're like, "Cool. Now, do you want to kill this tiger or do you want to eat a chain colt?" And it's really important as well as the synchronized civilian doesn't actually evoke any AROs if you've got stealth because it's a short movement skill. So if you haven't got any, you know, if you're relying on hacking and you've got no sixth sense, someone with stealth can walk up, grab them, walk away, and you can do nothing. So bear
That
that in mind as well, folks. Like have, you know, if you've got a core link of hacking, core link of hackers, or if you've got anything with sixth sense, otherwise you're having to rely on line of fire and or hoping that your opponent hasn't got stealth. Which, you know, if your opponent's smart, will be trying to use something with stealth, speculos and fides, camouflage things, whatever. We'll probably try and get that thing instead. So it's yeah, it's a tricky mission. Um, Very tricky mission. I don't think it matters if you go first or second. I feel like you can go first in Alpha Strike. You can go second and be the last person to, you know, do the same thing as you do in supplies. Walk an AD on, shoot the guy holding the dude, and then sink your own one. Um, but unlike supplies, where your supply box is on the guy who's holding it, if you sink a civilian and then climb up on top of a building and go prone, you can't get the civilian off you. They have to kill the guy who's holding the civilian first.
Yep.
Because you can be 8 inches away, civilian can be in the open. That doesn't matter. You can't get him until you kill the holder.
Yeah.
So you can make it really hard for your opponent to get the civilian back.
That's it's a tricky one. It's a real tricky one.
Yeah. I don't see there being big scores in this mission. Unless you've gotten stomped. I mean, I'm looking at running like a Sphinx list in this one, just to try to push, you know, um, push hard into my opponent, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's going to be enough. Um, feel like something like what we were talking about before might be better.
Yeah.
All right, so what? We're on to the last mission.
That's
Comm
it.
center.
Com Center. I'm just opening up
Yes.
Comlog because I don't have the season 10 document to bring up on the screen. So,
Oh mate, I've
um,
got season 10 right here. I
really?
downloaded it as well. Aye.
There you go. Well, you're a better man than I.
It's
If you've got
remember.
so you've got the document there, you can let me know what it says then.
Xenotech.
Oh God. Ugh. Oh.
Xenotech.
Ugh.
Season X.
Yuck. I'm
Yeah,
so glad we don't
right.
have a Xenotech anymore. Anyway, you can
Com
uh, you can tell me what's in
Center.
Com Center then.
Right, so Com Center is the grid style table. So 12-inch deployment zone, exclusion zone with 9 consoles in the middle. So you've got like three, a 3 by 3 grid that are in the middle, and then 8 inches either side. They're basically on the exclusion zone line, middle, and the other exclusion zone line. So the mission objectives are have the same amount of connected antennas as the adversary at the end of the game. Is 2 points only if one player has connected at least one antenna. If more connected antennas and then the adversary is 4 points. Kill more specialists is 2 points, and to kill the designated target is one objective point. And if that wasn't enough, there are 3 classified missions in this one. 3. It's like highly classified with button pushing.
Yeah, I mean 3 classifieds is a lot, right?
It's a lot. It's not frontline a lot. Actually, it's frontline 4. I think it's 4. Anyway, it's a lot. Um, I love this mission. I'm going to go out and say it. I think this is the best mission of the lineup.
Yeah.
I think this is a fantastic mission. It's so fun and varied and interesting. Yeah, it's a good mission to end it on. I'd far rather this than rescue, personally.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, how do we get? What's the easiest way to get 5 points?
Right. Okay, I did a bit of writing on this one earlier on today. Let me hit you up with this now. A major, more buttons and more specialists. See, I wouldn't say it's the easiest way. I'd say that's
No, I
that's that's
so
the
so
way to do it.
to have more connected antennas than the adversary
Hmm?
is worth 4 points, and
Sorry,
then
more buttons and kill your opponent's designated target. That's 5.
yeah, so you push one button, they push no buttons,
Yeah.
and you kill the designated target or achieve one classified.
Or achieve one classified.
That's your
Yeah.
5.
Yeah. I would say, given the nature of where the buttons are and how close they are to your DZ, they're only 4 inches outside of your DZ. You can almost guarantee that you'll, well, not guarantee. Excuse me, I'm burping. You can push 3 on your side. Your opponent pushes 3 on their side, and then you're kind of pushing the flanks in the middle. Um, you really want to be able to push like 3 to 4 buttons. If your opponent only pushes 3, as long as you have classified or kill their HVT. Now, reason why I didn't say designated target as the easiest way to victory is because designated targets are so easy to kill. I think it's probably that's more of a given that you're both going to do them. Well, not easy to kill, but I would say it's a given that both going to do them. I'd be relying on. So the more important part of this mission is kill your opponent's specialist because, as you know, the well-known saying goes, your opponent can't push buttons if you disable their hand.
Yeah. So
So that
so if you're killing their specialists, not only are you getting the 2 points for the more specialist part, but also you're impeding their ability to push the buttons, which is worth even more points.
exactly, and it's worth 2 points. So if you can secure yourself up with 6 points, you push more and get your the specialist kills. And that's the thing is the specialist kills can only go one of 2 ways, right? Designated target can go 1 point each. Classifiers can go 3 points each. But the specialists and the button pushing can only go one way or the other. So that's why I think that's more important than doing the classifieds. Because if you get 3 classifieds, Nick, and I get 3 classifieds, then we're even Stevens. um, specialists is where I think a lot of the crux of this mission comes into. Um, I've discovered that in the 2 games I've played of it is if you can kill just one more specialist than your opponent, you're on your way to victory.
Yeah, definitely. It's got a hacking bonus as well, which is important to note in that you want to be bringing
Mm.
hackers along. Same as what was the other one?
Supremacy.
Supremacy also has a hacking bonus,
Mm.
so nice little continuity there. Uh, but because it's an older it's season 10, right? It doesn't have any of the extras from season 13. So there's apart from the mission itself, there's nothing
It's
else you've
true.
got to worry about.
Yeah, there is that annoying Intelcom counter espionage again. So if I do a classified with the blah and you do a classified with the blue, and we cancel, the thing happens. So
Yeah.
it's annoying. I hate it, but it's there. So bear that in mind though, if when you draw a classified, if you're at a disadvantage for drawing that one. So we have to remove the HVT class. Well, I don't know if this is actually how it's supposed to be run, but this is how we're going to be running it at Novacore, according to Gavin. Is we are removing the HVT classifieds before the start of the game. You will not be drawing any of those 6 classifieds from your deck, and this is because the HVT is a designated target, and we don't want the last round of Novacore to be contentious because somebody loses because they got an HVT classified and they're classified.
Killed
The
killed the HVT instead of achieving the
yeah,
classified.
yes. So I think it's fair. I think it just makes it a little bit easier. You just remove that additional step from your
It's a
mind.
variable that's entirely up to chance based on what the draw looks like. And for the round 5 of a 2-day tournament, you don't want to have that type of variable in play.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's probably fair just to remove it. Um, just deal with the non HVT classifieds.
yep, I agree. That's fine. Um,
Um,
anything else about
what else do
this
we say?
mission? Do you want to go first or
Um,
second?
it's a tough one as well. I think as much as this mission wants you to be specialist heavy and push buttons, I don't think it matters. I think you can go first or second in
That
this one.
like because there's so many buttons out there that you can push. Sure,
Yeah.
if you go second, that means you might be able to steal one off your opponent in a final push to change the numbers around. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't think that's necessarily the best way to look at it. I mean, but it's definitely doable. But I agree that you can definitely go either way.
Yeah, I think a good example would be on Sunday I played against a combined army player who had a Rajat waiting in the wings to walk on as specialist. And the whole point of him was to drop in or walk on the last turn because he went second and push whatever buttons were in my side of the table to flip them to him. So I think I had five buttons pushed to his 3 or 2. So if he's pushing so the big difference is if he's pushing my buttons, not only is he he's pushing my buttons, not only is he getting a button, he's also removing a button from me.
Yeah,
So 5-3 suddenly goes to 4
for
for
all.
all,
Yeah.
right? Rather than like 5-3 goes to 5-4 and then he has to get another button.
Yep.
Pushing them on my side, that's a big swing. So that's why he did it. He wasn't able to anyway. Doesn't matter. He wasn't able to do it because I put him in loss of lieutenant, so he didn't have enough man tokens to do more than what
Yep.
more than just push one button, which would only make it a draw. So he couldn't manage to do it anyway. But that's something to bear in mind. Is if you're gonna go second, got something like that or hidden deployment. Although again, the exclusion zone does remove that ability for a hidden deployment model just to appear, push a button because you're only pushing buttons on your side of the table, which may have already been pushed by you anyway.
Mm.
So AD could be really useful, especially if you've got AD deployment zone. Otherwise, yeah, maybe roll for that infiltrator or bend the orders and move across the table.
Yeah.
I yeah.
I feel like the way that I'm looking at this one is that well I haven't really considered like a drop troop specialist. Really, I'm just kind of taking my big hitters to punch my opponent in the face. I mean, this is how I've tried to play it on Sunday, which didn't really work, was
Mm.
to try and just aggressively take on my adversary and then push buttons later. Maybe the better option is to start pushing buttons from the beginning and then just kill things as you go along. And really, because that's what I mean. Apart from killing specialists, it's all about the buttons.
It's all about the buttons, and I think on turn one, turn one or turn two, you should be prioritizing button pushing, and you should be looking to push at least two,
Mm-hmm.
or preferably three, preferably all three in the closest to you. You should be pushed by turn two. Then turn three is all about equalizing or getting ahead. You should be dedicating either turn one or turn two to killing whatever of your opponent going to cause you a problem. Because I think specialist kills are really important in this one. If you can, if your opponent is playing an army that doesn't have much camouflage or hidden deployment or AD, and you can see their specialists that are going to be pushing buttons, obviously look for the hackers. Kill those things. Kill them turn one before they even get a chance to push the button. Because if they're relying on their engineer or the Whip 12 doctor, and you're probably golden because they might not get it in one turn. Waiting for turn three to push their buttons, you've probably already won. I'd be looking at and then on your side, you're probably actually looking not to give away too many of your own specialists. So I'd be looking at again camo HD, ED, or durable specialists that can reliably push more than one button. Because in my last turn on Sunday, I had a shrouded hacker that went and moved up, um, pushed the button in the middle, pushed the button on their side, then died. It's
Yep.
fine because it's a hacker. It's two dice on 16s, pushed two buttons reliably, then went down. He couldn't respond to that. I lost a specialist, but we were there. I think at that point tied on specialists, so I was happy with it. If he went and tried to push buttons back, now I have a potential chance of killing their specialist as they push buttons. So it's actually a win-win for me. Because if I kill their specialist while they push a button, they might swing it towards them, but they're going to swing it back away from them because they've lost a specialist.
Yep.
Um, it's yeah, I really like this mission. Basically, the bottom line is push more buttons and kill their specialists is how I look at this one.
But
The
then you've got
classifieds are the
three
classifieds are good.
classified objectives, and you can't discount that.
Oh, you can't because I think what did I put down here? So push the same number of buttons. Get your classifieds and kill specialists. You can keep the game closer, even win by getting all. Yeah, this is actually quite interesting. You can keep the game closer, even win if you just get all the classifieds and kill more specialists and shoot their HVT. Because that's 3 for classifieds, 2 for specialists, and 1 for the HVT or 1 for the designated target. That's 6 points. You get 6
Six
points
points
if you
without
do
even
all that.
pushing a button.
Yeah,
Oh
but
my
if your opponent,
god, this mission.
uh,
It's like
if
there's
your
so
but
many different ways it can go. It's crazy.
if your opponent pushes more buttons than you and gets 2 classifieds, that's 6 all.
That's right.
If they get their HVT, the designated target, that's 7-6. So 4 points for pushing more buttons is primary. Like
Yep.
you can still eke out a win. You push the same number of buttons. If you go 3 all or 2 all or 4 all, whatever the hell it is, I think your primary goal should be push more buttons, and then that's what you want to do.
Cool.
Um,
Well, I think that just about
so
covers it in terms of the 5 missions that for the day. Maybe we can have
yeah.
a bit of a chat about our general thoughts. Um,
Oh, okay.
I've never seen a mission lineup where more than this where I wanted to be able to take 3 lists rather than just 2.
It's killing me, man. It's killing me. I I want to take aggressive, punchy list. Deal with missions like maybe rescue, maybe a comm center as well. I can see myself running something aggressive for that, but then I end up having to put all of my eggs to my second list to achieve countermeasures and supplies and supremacy, and they don't all gel that well together because countermeasures you want a good spread of specialists, whereas supplies, supremacy, and comm center you kind of want a more concentrated type of specialist. You want your hacker. You want your paramedic. And then yeah, oh, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's difficult. How have you done? Have you worked out a split yet? I mean, I think you said before your splits
The
like
yeah,
easy.
supplies and supremacy are together, obviously, in my opinion, because there's no exclusion zone. So straight
Hmm.
up, you can go more heavily into midfield presence. Um,
Then
I would put a third one in that list, which is rescue,
mm,
because while you do need specialists in supplies and supremacy, you don't need to have a whole big spread of specialists like you do in countermeasures.
okay, yeah.
And I would also consider that you would need a spread of specialists in Com Center as well because you've got three classifieds and you don't know what those classifieds are going to be.
That's a good point. Yeah, three
So
specialists.
so that's so that I so the even though there's more midfield stuff in the supremacy supplies uh, list, which does not pair well with the exclusion zone in rescue, I'd still put
Mm,
those together because I feel like you're still kind of doing the same things. It's similar to supplies in that you're trying to stop your opponent from retrieving something, and
mm.
so that's the split that I'm going with. Com center and is the same list as countermeasures, and then the other three have the other list.
I think that seems like the obvious split. My thing about comm center and classifieds is you get to pick those classifieds a little bit more than you do in countermeasures. So you
That's true.
draw two, go, oh, I'll take that one. You might get two and go, oh, I can't do either of these. Ugh. You've got more control over you than you do in countermeasures, where it's just whatever's there, that's it.
Yep, that's true.
Think you
And
can,
you
and there
can
is a
still
tendency.
secure the HVT as well. You can always, if you do get a bum draw in Com Center, you can always secure the HVT to swap out
No,
one
you
of your
can't.
in Com Center.
Oh, because their HVT is designated target.
Oh shit! Yeah, never mind.
No, you cannot.
Yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, yeah, never mind.
I think you've got like just from my experience of playing Com Center, if you've got characters, right, if you've got veterans, elite chain of command, right, they can do I think six. If you've got hackers, they can do another six. Remove the HVT classifieds from there. That's I guess some of them are HVT related. Anyway, I reckon between having hackers and characters, or at least the veteran classifieds, I reckon you'll be well suited to do you know two out of three of those. You might need a doctor, which I guess is where you can put comm center and countermeasures in a similar bucket. But I think it's yeah, I don't know. I the split I've done is a bit different. Split I've gone for I think I'm not quite sure about it yet, but I'm looking at countermeasures, supremacy, and supplies, then rescue and bomb center, then maybe also putting supremacy into that kind of floating bucket. Um, reason for that is because supremacy and comm center both need hackers. Lots of well, not lots of hackers, but you need a couple. You need 2 to 3 hackers, I reckon. Um, and whereas if you've got a smorgasbord of specialists for countermeasures, they'll both plug into supplies and supremacy just fine. Yes, there is an exclusion zone in countermeasures, but you can still get 4 inches out of it, and I think that's still fine. I'll take that hit because I feel like rescue and comp center, I can run harder, can push a harder, more aggressive list in that mission because comp center, if I've got infiltrating specialists that are right next to the button or hackers, that's 1 order each to push a button, maybe two. So it's like three to four orders to push a button. The rest of the orders can be used on killing whatever the fuck I need to kill. SQ, again, I don't need specialists, so I'm going to be using my forward deploying, well, whatever forward deploying elements I've got to defend my own civilians, while I push up with speculos or um, Jeskin or a Sphinx, trying to kill as much of my opponent as I possibly can. So then on round three, I push whatever buttons I haven't already pushed, or I grab the civilians I haven't already grabbed. That's that's how I'm going at the moment, but it's subject to change because I think supplies can also be played that way too, and so can supremacy actually. So yeah, it's I don't like it.
I just
I
don't
don't
know.
like it.
I don't know what to think. I just like, even following this conversation beforehand, I thought I was secure in what my lists are looking like, but
Mm.
now I'm like looking at it further. I'm like, no, maybe I do need to put in a drop troop in those lists. Maybe I do need to put a specialist here or there. Um,
Yeah, it's I, 'cause
I
yeah, I was
just
looking
can't.
at
I
like
just keep. I'm continually second guessing myself, and I hate it.
yeah, this is like for BrizCon a few months ago, I was like easy, right? No problem. I've got this list split, no problem at all. You know, put the objective or missions together and put the other missions together, and then like maybe decap can be either mission. Easy. This one, not easy. Um, I think that's testament to Gavin for choosing them. Because like if you go for a shooty, if you go if one of your lists is a shooty list, I feel like your second list can't cover all of the specialist bases in the way that you want to. Like you're lacking in some areas. Then if you try to make two lists that are quite specialist heavy, like one will do type of specialist, one will do the other, then you might be lacking in your offensive capabilities. So you're kind of um being your yeah, the missions are hamstringing you a bit. Which actually then leads to my question then of what army do you think could do this lineup really well?
None.
None. None of them.
No, I mean, like, there's the obvious choice of Shaz Vasti. They have anything that's got impersonators, right? Shaz Vasti, I would say even more so than the hack factions. Um,
Well, combined art, like vanilla combined,
Vanilla
right?
combined,
Let's just
yeah. Vanilla
can
combined, of course.
absolutely do these missions. Like I mean, let's just talk about vanilla combined for a second because you have in vanilla combined hacking powerhouse, and not just hackers that are like good quality hackers. You have like durable hackers. You got the anatomatic, got the carotid. Right, they're 2 wounds, no wounding cap, armor 5, big BS. You know, amazing, right? Specialists that can gunfight. Um, they can do the missions. Right? They can do a whole bunch of stuff for countermeasures. They can do a whole bunch of stuff for comm center, supremacy, heaps and stuff. They can do all those. Then you still have your lower grade, your one wound hackers, your Bet and Kiss, Victor Messer, um, Shrouded. Any of those guys, they're really good. The Umbras, fuck me. Like what's his face? Orcus, right? He's great in countermeasures. Crap. Like he can do Predator. He's a character. He's a hacker. Um, they're yeah, they've got no shortage of great pieces that can do this mission. Then they've got the war bands to back it up. They've got Tigers and Gakis and Araratsi. They've got Smoke. Um, they can they done a bunch of stuff that can make rescue really difficult. Yeah, wow, like
Look,
that.
look. I mean, Vanilla combined are S tier for a reason,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
right?
see the previous episode. Yeah. And then I think Hack Islam was mentioned as well. Again, for the same reason, right? They've got incredible impersonators, got incredible doctors. Hacking isn't as good, but they've still got some decent hackers that can do the job. They've got a really diverse range of specialists and veterans, charges. They've got decent AD trippers. They've got cheap warbands to ward off attacks. They've got jammers and gazis, so again for something like rescue, they can defend against that really well. Um, Yeah, they're really good. And then vanilla nomads for reasons that we've probably are very evident. Um, very good hacking, very good midfield presence. Again, the fact that there's three of them that have exclusion zones is bad for all armies. It's not too bad for nomads because they can still put crazy koalas out around the around the civilians.
Yeah,
They can,
I mean, yeah. Considering that part as well, I'd say that armies that don't necessarily rely on a lot of midfield stuff are at a bit of an advantage
yeah, okay,
because
yeah, because they
they don't have to worry about the exclusion zone necessarily because it's not something they're worried about anyway. Um, Maybe I don't
what
know,
you were
man.
saying before about taking units that you don't normally consider.
Yep,
That may be something that like Pano players might be like, well, let's take this unit anyway because it's a Swiss Guard hacker, right? It's already in your DZ, it's in your DZ from the start. You lose 4 inches of deployment. You get a 2 wound heavy infantry with amazing gunfighting potential and amazing hacking potential. That could see really good use in this mission lineup as well. So there's yeah, even Ariadna could do pretty well in this mission lineup because of mobility is
that's
what I'm
right.
saying.
Um, well, you've got at least two missions where you need to be mobile. Um, Even the mobility of even in
I'd argue all of them you need
oh
mobility.
yeah, sure, but like yeah, I guess supplies and rescue are actually like proper retrieval missions. Um,
Yeah.
but then you've got things like a comm center, right? If you've got a specialist on a motorbike who's it's going to take you a lot less orders to speed up to your opponent's side and take their buttons than
Yeah.
one that's not.
Supremacy involves you getting into your opponent's DZ. Countermeasures, because of the exclusion zone, means you need to get to at least the midfield to engage with their HVTs to accomplish classifieds. Like, you got to be able to move up, possibly under smoke. So Ariadne are great for that. Um, Specialists maybe aren't as desirable as like combined, but you don't always need specialists, right? For doing classifieds, you just sometimes
That's
need
true.
the veteran or the guy with the D charges. Armandino, for example, is a great unit in Ariadna because it's an engineer and it's got D charges. So um, armies that we think will struggle, I think, are the same armies that'll probably be in the C and D tier of the list that you made with Rob. Um, I actually do believe that Druze can do countermeasures really well because they've got lots of medium infantry that are veterans.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, they can do a lot of stuff. But,
Yeah, I mean,
French
in terms of specific armies that are going to be good and bad, like it's just such a mix. It's all over the place, and it's. I think I can't see any faction having an easy time coming up with what their lists are going to look like.
which really bugs me when I hear somebody being really really confident, like, oh yeah, no, I just I just made a list. It's fine. It's just a list I use for everything. I'm like, fuck you. You can't do that. Don't tell me it's a good list. I'm sitting here like pulling my hair out, ripping up pieces of paper, throwing them in the bin. No, this is terrible. This is terrible. I can't figure out what I'm gonna do. Wish I had an extra 100 points. Um, third list. Um, yeah, it's the split still got me.
It's yeah. I know. I agree. I agree.
The fact that like 2 weeks out, or what we had 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, I, I still don't even know how I'm going to split my two lists up is worrying me. And not to mention the fact that we're going to New South Wales where the terrain is apparently way less dense. And I mean, even that aside, there's 80 players, and we know that there might be a terrain shortage. There may be a not a terrain shortage, but there may be some maybe a stretch on terrain. That worries me as a player. Not from like an enjoyment.
And yet you keep complaining about my open table that I brought on the
I know,
weekend.
but
No.
that wasn't an open table. It was just a bad table,
You
Nick.
think we're not going to have bad tables at Novacore?
Well, I think if Gavin Bateman is setting them up, he's gonna at least make them so that they're not bad. They might be a bit open, but they'll be. Anyway, not gonna I'm not gonna complain too much because they'll feel my bias. But
I know,
we
I
all
know,
know.
I know, I know. The man can work wonders, but perfectly balancing 40 tables is a big
Yeah,
ask.
I mean, like balancing, 30 tables, I'd be happy.
As long as they're not the ones you have to play on, right? You only
As
have
long as
to.
the ones in
Of the 40 tables, we only have to play on 5 of them. So
Look, I went to BrizCon and there were two tables that were well, there was one table that was horrendously open. I smashed my opponent on it, so it's fine as long as I've got the right list. That's the thing, right? That's the other thing, right? We're talking about splitting them on mission. Do we split them on table?
well, I
Do we
mean,
split them on
the two
opponent?
lists that I'm sitting on at the moment can they do have the ability to achieve every mission. There's no mission that if I take this list, I'm screwed. Even countermeasures, both of them could do countermeasures. So I am almost leaning towards basing my decisions on what the tables look like on the day.
Okay, because we're quite
Almost,
similar,
almost. I'm not going to
quite similar
commit
list then.
that. Not really. I don't want to give away all my secrets.
No, here's me talking about the Sphinx. I'm not running a Sphinx.
But one of them has more deployment zone aggression, and the other one has a bit of deployment zone aggression and more sneaky pieces.
Hmm.
So on an open table, I could take the deployment zone aggression, charge in with my big guns. On a more closed table, I could take the sneaky list and cut corners a bit more.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Well, I think we can maybe pass this on to our listeners. Maybe they can let us know how they split their lists,
let us
or
know.
what
Let us
they
know if
think
you're
is
having
better.
as hard of a time at this as we are, because we are having a real hard time.
Yeah, it's no joke, and the fact that we've got to defend our honor on round one as well is
That's right.
making
We're with Transmission Matrix have thrown down the gauntlet. I've bought a T-shirt. Kev, you've bought a T-shirt.
a t-shirt. Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. Quick plug for that. If you guys want to land yourself a limited edition um, Novacore 2022 Lost Lieutenant versus Transmission Matrix T-shirt, get on down to our Facebook page, I think, and also Transmission Matrix Facebook page. For $80 for a T-shirt, $80 for a hoodie. They look really nice. They've done a good job.
I think it looks
Uh,
great. I bought the
can't do
post.
a
I
good
bought
job
the
of a
post.
podcast, but they can do a great job of
Ooh,
a shirt, so that's
oof,
fine.
oof. I bought the poster as well. So
Oh, that's cute.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, that's nice. You can put that
I
behind that
will.
white space
I'll put
behind your
it
head.
in this big white empty space. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
yeah. When we find out who wins.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we might wrap it up there,
Reckon,
Kev.
eh? I think I'm
We've
pretty
been
done.
rabbiting on for long enough. But yeah, I mean, we might sound a little bit worried, but we're still super keen for Novacore. So
I'm very keen. I'm gonna spend the next 2 weeks in mine site in WA just
just
furiously
theory crafting.
theory crafting. I might even try and get a game on TTS, so just to try
Whoa.
to get myself some games in. Um, I can hone my lists to a fine key, and then still do terribly with them. But I'll have fun. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on this evening, Kev. Thanks to our patrons who have sat through the live show as well. And I apologize to everyone again for blowing my nose repeatedly. But these things happen. If you want to become a patron, jump on to patreon.com/Lost Lieutenant and you can support us over there. But I've been
Become one of our loyal cocks.
That's right. I've been your host, Nick.
I've been the other host, Kevin.
And you've been listening to Lost Lieutenant.
Good night. Right, we done?